and welcome to the City of Paterson regular meeting for the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Tonight is April 28th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Chairman Rohim, you may proceed.
Yes, let's stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you.
Let's have a moment of silence for Chairman Paterson. Thank you. And Madam Secretary, you can continue.
Thank you. Yes, sir. The notice requirement of the Open Public Meeting Law has been satisfied with respect to this meeting, specifying the time, date, and location included in the annual notice adopted at the reorganization meeting of the board, filed with the clerk of the City of Paterson, posted in City Hall, and mailed to at least 2 newspapers in accordance with the provisions of the law. Chairman, may I proceed with the roll call, sir?
Yes, please call the roll call.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Baralt,
Present.
Commissioner Furman,
Present.
thank you. Commissioner Rinaldo,
I'm here, Maggie.
thank you. Commissioner Watkins,
Present.
Commissioner White,
Present.
thank you. Commissioner Arenas,
Present.
Commissioner Vega is absent, and Chairman Rohim.
Present.
Thank you. May I continue with the agenda, sir?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act addressing effect of coronavirus measures on the next public meeting, consistent with the coronavirus-related restrictions of Executive Order Number 107, given on Saturday, March 21st, 2020, by Governor Philip D. Murphy. The Board of Adjustment of the City of Paterson will not conduct in-person participation of the public at all future meetings until further notice. However, public participation will be available by means of communication equipment pursuant to NJSA 10-4-8, commencing on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Though there may potentially be a practical need for a limited number of administrative, technical, or other city personnel to be present in or near the council chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall, 155 Market Street, Paterson, New Jersey. In-person participation of the public is prohibited. Nevertheless, for reasons of compliance with the said Executive Order Number 107, public participation will be available by calling 1-973-321-1579, meeting ID number 711-680-001. On the date and time that the meeting is scheduled to commence, the public may also participate in the meeting by accessing the website of the City of Paterson, www.patersonnj.gov. The following matters will be heard. Millennial Luxury Apartments, 22-36 North 2nd Street, Block 207, Lots 5, 6, 7, and 8. This is for a reconsideration on a denial of December 16th, 2021. Is the applicant present? Mr. Mariconda?
Is present and ready, Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much. Our next application is Al Amana Food Market LLC, 375-377 Getty Avenue, Block 7001, Lot 19. This is an application to convert an existing auto repair into a retail space, which is not permitted in the R2 zone. The applicant proposes to construct on a 7,500 square foot lot or 75 by 100 feet to accommodate accommodate a supermarket on the first floor with office space and storage on the second floor. The applicant proposes a rear yard of 4.6 feet, whereas 20 feet is required. The applicant proposes, building coverage at 58.5%, whereas 40% is permitted. The applicant proposes 5 parking spaces, whereas 24 spaces are required. This is for use by bulk site plan and Passaic County Planning Board review in an R2 zone and was adjourned from the November 30th, 2021 meeting. Is the applicant present?
Applicant's present and ready to proceed.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed with the third application, HN as in Nancy R, HNR Realty LLC, 256-260 Wabash Avenue, Block 7104, Lot 6 and 7. This is for an application to seek to construct a 5-story, 32-unit apartment building on a 10,624 square foot lot. The applicant proposes 23 covered parking spaces and the apartment vestibule on the first floor. The second through fifth floors will consist of 2 one-bedroom and 6 two-bedroom apartments per floor. There will be a total of 8 one-bedrooms and 24 two-bedroom apartments. The plan includes 246 square feet of amenity space on the third through fifth floors. The applicant is providing 23 of the 63 parking spaces, that are required. This is for site plan D variance, use variance, both variances in a mixed-use district, and this is their first appearance. Is the applicant present?
Applicant's present and ready.
Thank you. Lastly is Paterson Falls Realty Group LLC, 456-458 Ellison Street, Block 4208, Lot 15. This is an application to seek to demolish an existing 2-story boarding house to construct a new multiple dwelling building. The applicant proposes 10, construct a 3-story building to accommodate 12 studio apartments with 2 parking spaces, whereas 22 spaces are required. This is for site plan use variances, bulk variances. This is located in the 5th Ward redevelopment zone and in the RA-1 residential district. This is also a first appearance. Is the applicant present?
Yes, Madam Chair and Madam Secretary, the applicant is ready. This is Michael Rubin speaking.
Thank
Mr.
you
Rubin,
very-
Madam Secretary, I'm going to cut you off. Mr. Rubin, can you correct for the record that we're not proposing to demolish, but instead of doing a reconfiguration with an addition, but we're not proposing to demolish at all?
Yes, when we're heard, we will be doing that.
Okay, thank you. That's why Mr. Record was correct.
This is a rehab rather than a demo.
Thank you. Duly noted. Mr. Marco LaRocca,
Yes.
would you like to address that? Should we proceed with, even with that change? It's up to you.
We'll address it when we get to that time. We should
Wonderful.
start, are we done with the agenda?
Yes, sir, you may proceed.
Chairman, we should start with the motion for reconsideration.
Yes, let's do number 1 first, and then we'll do number 2.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Eleanor Conta, my office located at 726 Market Street, Paterson, on behalf of Millennial Luxury Apartments. The board will recall this application did receive a denial decision back on December 16th of last year. We submitted to your board staff and your planning department review of what we believe are substantial modifications, and the site plans and architectural renderings were submitted reflecting those changes. Just briefly to summarize, and I have Mr. Mark Sonoda available from our engineering site plan office on this case if needed. We've got, as you might recall, 3 lots. We originally had a project that proposed 3 multifamily buildings. independent from each other with a minor subdivision. And we already have modified this project to reflect just 2 buildings, 30 units per, and a parking area, 1 lot in the middle designated strictly for parking. And we would, of course, if there was an approval down the road, create a deed restriction so that lot would be strictly designated for parking. And Mark is available for any questions regarding the modified site plan, but essentially the architectural changes involve an addition of a rooftop recreational and sitting area, which we think is very substantial. We added activity rooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor, including workout gyms and community office. We also added storage bins for the 4th floor. There were also engineering site plan changes regarding parking design changes to include electronic vehicle charging station, 20 per residential lot, so that we could lessen our parking variance to receive credit for 5 additional spaces. And we also did reflect changes in the center parking area with tandem parking for a total of 48 spaces. Now, I'm aware of the fact that there will be question about whether those spaces comply with RSIS. We understand that those questions, we believe, we can modify even further if we're granted reconsideration. We can tweak the plan further and come back to your planner with even again slightly revised plans that might take into account any concerns in that regard. But we do believe that these changes are more than substantial to ask the board's consideration for a rehearing on the newly revised plans. So that's essentially where we are. I have Mr. Sonoda available if you wish to have any questions addressed to him. Thank you.
Mr. LaRocca, for the reconsideration, I probably need your opinion on that. I was sort of on the fence with the reconsideration. The reason why was when it was heard on December 16th in 2021, the application was denied. And the reasons given at that time were basically parking and density. And right now, the units still have, the proposed buildings still have 30 units, and there's still a parking variance. I know that they've added rooftop open space and a gym for amenity space.
Hold on one second, guys, 'cause you kind of addressed something I wanted to ask. So there's still 30 units?
Correct.
Yes, in each building, yes, there's still
Alright,
the same.
All right, so, Mr. Maricano, to get that recreational area and the different areas, how did you accomplish that? Is the footprint of the building changed, or
No.
the apartment smaller? How did we get there?
No, we did not change the footprint of the buildings. We have the rooftop recreational terrace and sitting area, which adds to the open space, meets the open space requirement, at least to some degree. And we added more activity rooms in terms of adjusting the space design on the interior of the building. But the number of units did not change. And again, we have the parking design changes in the middle vacant lot. So we did not wind up with a net change of units, but a substantial modification of the space.
Let me hear about the modification of the parking.
Okay,
Aside from the electrical charges.
Right.
I want to hear about physical modification.
okay. Okay, well, again, I could put Mark's note on if you wish, but we did.
Hold on, Gary, Gary, is the parking modification substantial?
Well, Marco, there was a parking variance in December, there's still a parking variance now.
But that doesn't mean that it's not
Okay.
substantial change.
Yeah.
This is a variance in and of itself. So
Right.
just what, like how much did the variance, like if they were short X amount, how many are they short now?
Well, yeah, they were short of approximately 30, if I remember correctly. I did pull out the file, but I didn't check that. And I didn't go through it all, but they're short of probably maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 spaces. I didn't calculate that. And there's a reason for that, Marco. One was because the engineer didn't use RSIS to calculate the parking requirement. That's number one. Number two, the parking design in the middle lot, it really doesn't work. And if you want me to explain that, I can, but I did it roughly explain that to Mr. Mariconda.
Well, no, you don't have to really get into it, but
Okay.
if using the calculations you believe should be used, how many spaces, if it was 30 short, how many are they short now?
Anywhere from 5 to 10, I would imagine.
So they've increased 20 spaces.
Yeah, but it didn't work, but yes, they did that.
Okay, when you say it doesn't work, you don't think the plan works?
Right, because what happened is, on the middle lot, commissioners, they put tandem parking on both sides of the aisle. So now, RSIS calls for 1.8 spaces per unit. So that means, technically, every unit could go tandem. But the problem with that is, since the electronic spaces, which are not shown, but if they are proposed, they have to be shown. If they are shown, they're going to be inside. You also have the ADA spaces inside where they have 21 spaces under each building. So you're going to have your 5 electronic spaces, your ADA spaces, which only leaves a few spaces for the studio apartments. So then, by my analysis, all the visitors and guests and anybody who goes to the site is going to have inside parking, and the residents are going to be outside in the elements.
Let me ask you a question, Gary.
Okay.
Purpose of tonight, is the parking bad planning, or are they just not parking spaces? In other words, the application, if the changes are substantial enough to satisfy res judicata, then that will come back before the board. If the parking plan is not good, if it doesn't make sense, that's something that's gonna be considered, especially in light of the fact that.
Okay.
parking was already an
Well,
issue.
then, Mark, then-
But if they truly have lowered the variance from 30 to 10 by these type of modifications, and they made the other modifications for additional recreational space, not just on the roof, but also within, it sounds like they're starting to get substantial for purposes of being allowed to be heard.
Okay, then I have no problem with that. That's what I wanted, because I was on the fence, Marco, quite frankly. And one other thing.
Having said that, then it sounds like the recommendation to the board is that there's substantial modifications. But the flip side of that is, Mr. Mariconda's listening. It doesn't sound like that parking. If parking was a concern before, it doesn't sound like his parking plan. And I don't judge it at all. But I'm saying I'm not reconsidering it. But you're already not approving of it and backing it to the board. So.
Well, Michael, we're willing to, if the board deems it worthy of reconsideration, we're willing to continue to work with your staff in terms of the parking dimensions and RSIS compliance. And I think those are matters that could be discussed on the merits if there were a future hearing.
Yeah, I would just suggest that it be modified.
Yes.
And Marco, one other thing I would suggest, and this is for the board's edification, it's a 3-lot subdivision with that middle lot being proposed as parking. Now, I know Mr. Mariconda mentioned a deed restriction, but I think the site plan should also say that in the reconsideration. So obviously, if it doesn't pass, the deed restriction won't hold. But I think the site plan needs to state that that's going to be a deed restriction, because my concern is, if it's just a lease, and 5 or 10 years from now,
Mr. Mariconda doesn't object to that. Do you, Mr. Mariconda?
We absolutely agree. Gary and I have talked about that already, yes.
What else? Gary?
That's it, but then obviously, they have to show the electronic spaces, which they don't. The engineer needs to show RSIS parking requirements, which he does not. And quite frankly, then just the parking issue.
Here's what I think, and tell me if you agree or disagree. I think it sounds like it's substantially modified for purposes of reconsideration, so it could be listed anew. Having said that, it doesn't sound like it's ready to be listed, and I don't think it should be listed until these changes are made the electric parking spots identified, and the other issues you detailed. So although I think there should be a motion to grant reconsideration, I don't think it should be listed until those things are satisfied and you're satisfied with it. Does that make sense?
Agreed.
I would have no problem with that too. It can be carried, can be approved and listed at a future time without a date at this time, yes.
Okay. All right, Chairman,
Yes, Commissioners, can we have a motion?
Chairman Rohim, Commissioner Minaro to approve, the reconsideration with no date.
Can I have a second?
Commissioner Baralt, the second.
Thank you. Maggie, you're on mute.
Mr. LaRocca, they will have to re-notify, am I correct?
yeah, they're not even gonna get a date tonight.
That's correct, okay, I just wanted it on the
Right,
record.
it's not a matter of re-notifying, they're gonna have to, everything's gonna have to be done anew.
You got it, thank you very much. Commissioners, Commissioner Baralt,
Yes, approved.
Commissioner Furman,
Yes.
Commissioner Minato,
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins,
Yes for reconsideration.
thank you, Commissioner White,
Yes, for reconsideration, but could we just make sure that all those things are in place prior to even setting a date?
absolutely, for sure. Thank you, that will be noted as well. Commissioner Arenas,
Yes, for reconsideration.
thank you, and Chairman Rohim, I apologize.
Yes.
Thank you. This application has been granted reconsideration and will be carried to a future date to be determined. Thank you very much. You may proceed.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, we'll listen to item number 2 now.
Yes, again, good evening, I'm Maricondo on behalf of the applicant, Alamana Food Market INC. This application was before you, earlier, Commissioners, too. We had a statutory denial with 4 affirmative votes. We came back to your board, we were granted reconsideration opportunity, and what we've done, we're now back before you with the actual presentation of the case as amended. As the application document and revised plans indicate, we are seeking site plan as well as use and bulk variances. We are located in an R2 medium density residential zone. We originally, and we still are, looking to convert an existing auto repair business, which is absolutely not a permitted use in the R2 zone. It's a long-standing, non-conforming use that we would like to eliminate. We're proposing to build, to accommodate a supermarket on the first floor with office space and storage on the second as well. And we believe that this is a service that will be extremely valuable to the community if granted by this board. And again, we remove a non-conforming high-density type of use such as auto repair. And we establish a needed food market in the area. We'll have Anwar of AK Architecture offering the expert testimony this evening. He'll be explaining what changes we provided to this plan and how we were able to establish, we think, a better basis for granting approval in this case. I also were sent on to board attorney and board planner a copy of the front page of the existing lease for the site if this application is granted. And we've been able to work out an arrangement for 2 additional off-site parking spaces. Unfortunately, that agreement, very candidly, does not give us a long-term use of those additional 2 spaces at this time. We're still trying to obtain that. Right now, it only allows for a revocable 2-space usage on the neighboring lot, which the owner, who was also the owner of this property as well, unfortunately still has the right to eliminate. So those spaces are there, they're on our plan. but we have limited guarantee about the ability to keep those spaces in effect for long term. So want to be upfront and very candid about that at this point. We're still working on that. So that's where we are generally in terms of the background. And I'm going to call Anwar as our first witness. And Anwar, we're going to ask you to post your plan.
Okay, yes.
Can you please raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Say your full name for the record, please.
Anwar Al-Khatib, A-N-W-A-R. Last name is A-L-K-H-A-T-I.
Anwar, you've appeared before this board on several occasions. Just give us a quick summary of your professional background.
Yes, I'm a registered architect in the state of New Jersey. I obtained my license in 2012. And I have a master's degree in sustainable design, bachelor degree in architectural engineering, and I appeared in front of this board and other boards in the state of New Jersey.
Okay. I'd ask the chair to accept that.
Yes, we accept the credential.
Thank you very much. Again, if you would, I referred briefly in my opening the background of the application. Could you give us a view of the site, but also importantly,
I had from the email, I had everything.
Excuse me, somebody's not on mute.
The meeting.
Someone needs to mute their microphone, please. Please mute yourselves. There's a gentleman having a conversation, please. You may proceed.
thank you. Anwar, just give us an overview of the general site and its surrounding area. And then if you would, we're going to present our application anew with respect to the proposed usage of the site and what's contained on your site plan, okay?
Okay. So, as you stated earlier, this is an existing mechanic shop right now on Gate Avenue, 375 Gate.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
If someone is still speaking.
Mr. Al-Khatib, Gary Paparosi, can you start with the date of the plan, please? Okay.
So, these plans were submitted on December 6, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Not at all, no. I'm not hearing you at all.
I'm unmuted, Bob. Can you hear me now? Anybody can hear me?
You're kind of low. You have to raise your volume, I think.
I need to just speak louder because the volume is highest.
Okay, that's better.
Okay, so the existing garage is an existing shop, auto shop. Basically, it's like fixing trucks right now, located in Giddy Avenue. It's in the middle of R2 zone. And I guess you see in R2 zone, this particular site is on the back of it with I2 zone. So it's on the border between R2 zone and I2 zone. The location of the site also has a school facing it on Giddy Avenue. There's a couple of grocery stores, some retail businesses on Giddy Avenue adjacent to the building. But the main use of the block, wherever this building is located at, is an residential block. We presented this project earlier, last year, and we're proposing to convert the existing auto shop into a convenience or a supermarket. We're denied. We have an issue with parking, so we redesigned the interior space of the grocery store or the supermarket, reducing the amount of the sales area, creating some indoor parking spaces at the loading area that's already existing in this building. So looking at the A01, this is the site plan.
Can you enlarge it at all?
Yeah, so I'm just want to move the site plan a little bit up here.
If you want to focus in on a particular section enlarged, you can do that.
Okay, so here on the site plan, the driveway is existing. The building is one-story building, and as you know, we stated earlier, the lot has a shared driveway between this particular lot and the adjacent lot. It's currently used as an asphalt driveway. So the actual width of the driveway in our site is 14.4, and there's another 4 feet used from the other side as part of the driveway. We plan to use the existing driveway as is, not in it. We're proposing to have our customers parking on the side, on the rear yard of this property. So we'll have 3 parking spaces located in our site, 2 additional parking spaces located in the adjacent site, and we'll have 3 indoor parking spaces within the storage area. These additional 3 parking spaces will be used by the business owners and their employees. So to clarify this parking, I want to jump into the second page, which is the actual architectural floor plan. And these 3 spaces here, this is the existing garage door for the storage area. They will be parked indoor early in the morning before the business open, and door will be shut. It's a roll-up door. It will be shut, and the remaining portion of the driveway will be used as parking as shown in the site plan. So this is a kind of tricky situation for parking. So it has to be staged. So the first 3 parking spaces will be parked early in the morning by the employees and the business owners. The remaining parking spaces are located on the site, will be used by the customers, which will end up being 3 parking spaces in our site, 2 in the adjacent site. And we added additional 3 parallel parking spaces in the driveway, since we have very much wide driveways, 2.6 or 5. And for parallel parking, probably we can use them to park here. I think 12 feet is required for parallel parking, 12-foot driveways. The building itself, as a square footage, as a building area, will not change. The only change that we do is in the front of the building. Right now, the existing building has an oversized garage door there. We're trying to remove it and just construct a storefront for the retail entrance. And the additional height we have on the storefront will be enclosed with ATS, which is metal panel system. So the storefront will be not that high. The existing windows will remain, the existing brick material will remain, the service door in the Gary Avenue will remain. Most of our work will be in the inside. We'll be providing the 2 handicap bathrooms, one for men, one for women, a vestibule area. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have a storage and parking, and the dumpster or the trash area will be indoor. We'll provide all requirements for ventilation to have a healthy and sustainable area. And the back of the store will have some storage areas, walk-in fridge, and that's what will happen. So previously we used to have more sales area because we're using part of the parking as part of the retail. We're there, and we limit our retail to 3,500 square feet, I believe. 3,154 square feet of sales area.
So we've cut down our retail area.
The sales area is cut.
Right, the sales area, right.
Yeah, the total gross area 4,785 remains. Portion of it is on the second floor. It will be used as a office space. Right now, an existing second floor there. You can consider it as a mezzanine, but basically it's a full height floor. That floor will remain. The portion of the building in the back will be used as storage. So our sales area is shrunk to 3,154 square feet, which reduces the amount of parking spaces required from the previous application. I believe right now we are asking for the parking spaces. We're required to have 18 parking spaces. We're proposing 10, and as I said, 3 of them will be inside, will be used for the employees, 5 on site. In our site, 3 of them perpendicular, 3 of them parallel, and 2 on the adjacent lot that I believe Mr. Muhammad explained that we have a lease for that.
Right, those spaces are under what amounts to a month-to-month lease at this point. Unfortunately, we're working to try to make that a better situation. And we have the applicant, of course, available to testify as we follow, but I think you mentioned, but I just wanted to confirm, there is going to be a loading zone now on Getty Ave?
There is, yes, Getty Ave, which is no parking area will be here, yes.
So that's at the storefront, frontage area?
Exactly, yeah, we're proposing 50 feet long, loading zone, no parking area there.
Right, so that allows for much smoother, work, area for materials in and out of the premises?
Correct, yes.
I know that was one of the concerns, correct?
Correct, yeah. We're trying, in the previous application, we're planning to use the driveway itself for loading, and we're trying maybe to use the front of the store for guest parking, but probably will not work out, so we just clear the front of the store to be just on the loading, unloading, and keep the driveway and the back of the property just for parking.
Right. Okay. So anything else in terms of your site plan, either that is a modification or, again, we're testifying as a new application. Anything else you would like to add about the design at this point?
I remember Mr. Gary asked about the chain link fence that was on the back, and we agree we'll change that to a vinyl. That's one of the discussions we had earlier. And also the about, I think it was the trash area that we're trying to keep it indoor. We'll provide whatever required ventilation is needed by the code to keep the area as healthy as possible. But and the trash will be handled by third party early in the morning before the business hours.
Right, those are items that we would agree to as conditions of approval if that were to be granted. And although the applicant will be here to confirm your testimony, I did mention in my opening that this is, of course, like most small supermarkets, a 7-day business. And the normal hours will be 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., which the applicant can confirm as well. And you indicated that there's a mix of residential and small businesses in the area. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I have of Unwire at this time, Mr. Chairman, subject to your staff and questions.
Yes, Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mariconda, that is a concern, the lease being month to month, because not only does it increase your parking deficit, but it also decreases your ingress and egress width. You know, you're going up to the other building and adding 4 more feet to your driveway, which is already undersized. Mr. Al-Khatib mentioned that there was a 12-foot, but for two-way traffic, you need 24 feet. So you would be down to 14 feet if that lease is month to month and it expires after the first month after approval. I mean, that's one of my concerns, and I'll let Mr. LaRocca address that later. But on your plan, though, you're proposing loading and unloading in front of on city property. Did you get approval from the mayor and council on that?
No, that would be a condition, Mr. Paparazzi, which we've done in the past, where if the board is in favor of the application in all other respects, we would make application to the city clerk and ask for DPW's permission for that, approval, because it does take several, perhaps a few weeks, if not a couple months, for that to be considered by the city council. And my experience has been with Paterson is that they won't consider it unless the board makes it a condition of our application as an approval condition.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it makes the most sense. And
yeah,
doesn't make sense to go before the council when they don't have an approval.
Yeah, they've made us do that secondary, yes. Mm-hmm.
But Mr. LaRocca, because only because the loading and unloading is an issue, is there a chance that the mayor and council say, well, you know what, the street's too busy, because there was no parking there during my site inspection. So let's say the street's too busy, I'm not going to cut 50 feet of parking and put it for a proposed loading and unloading. Is there a chance of that? Because that's also a big effect on the application.
Well, if the application is presenting that they're going to have it, and we're going to consider that, and if there was a motion to approve based on the condition that they get that approved by the city council, and then city council doesn't approve it because the road's too busy or whatever scenario, like hypothetical you gave, then there's no approval, the resolution won't be adopted.
Okay, so it has to be with that, if they approve, okay.
Yeah, and then, you know, then they would have to make a determination if they would come back and try to modify the application, or just would be dead. It'd be,
Yeah.
at the end of it.
We accept that process.
Okay, also, Mr. Alcatib, you have, your garbage and recycling, now, you have the employees parking in front of it, and then you have customers parking in front of that. How do we guarantee pickup before, especially because there's a school there?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know when they're gonna come, and you know, and if they don't, they can't get to the way the garbage and the recycling is proposed. Quite frankly, you got 2 rows of cars blocking each dumpster. You know, I mean, that's also, you know, not the best scenario going as well.
Yeah, that I said it should be a staged parking here. So, the pickup for any garbage should before business hours of the store, and before even the employees park the cars there. And probably we're talking about like two days a week. And it should be handled by a third-party company because they have to go indoor and get out and leave the premises before any store hours is active. So
Absolutely, yes.
staged. It has to be staged. Yeah.
Okay, well, the reason I'm saying it is because I'm sure the block gets busy, you know, before you open with the school, and I don't know if the garbage is going to get there. That's you can't guarantee that. It's also a concern. Also, you propose parallel spaces, and the minimum width is okay, but the minimum length is supposed to be 22 feet. You don't have that, so these are all undersized. Parallel parking for customers now is hard enough, but these are undersized spaces, so it makes it even harder. You know, I know you're parking, you're doing what you have to do, but quite frankly, it doesn't work. I mean, especially with a month-to-month lease on the 2 spaces, undersized parking on the parallel spaces. Yeah, you know, you have a tough situation there, and with the loading and unloading still, you know, not resolved. But
Yeah, I understand, but Mr. Yeah, this is not a traffic area. You have a parking lot going in and out for a lot of traffic. So I don't think the 22 versus 20 will be an issue here. If I have an active driveway, that probably you have maybe like 20 cars coming in and out, and you have a lot of traffic. Probably will be a consideration, but 22, I understand, is undersized. We will ask for the variance for that, but for the amount of parking space that we have on the side of the parking lot, you know, I think it will be tough to work, but I think it can work.
that's right. Yeah, and my concern is because now they have to parallel park, you have a 14-foot driveway for in and out. So now
We don't have the other one. Correct.
you see what happens? Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
I
Okay.
understand. If we have 4'1", yes, 4'1" is giving us 18 foot. If we lose the 4'1", it will be 18'5". Yes, 14'4".
Yeah, and even 18 feet is undersized, you know, especially when they have to back up in parallel park. So I know you have your zoning chart on your plan, so I'm gonna just go over the variances with you and the commissioners. One, commissioners, is a use variance which requires 5 affirmative votes. Now, the way the parking is situated, 18 spaces are required, and they're providing 11, but those 3 are undersized. The aisle width is supposed to be 24 feet. It's going to be either 14.5 or 18.5, which is both undersized. And the loading area, well, you heard Mr. LaRocca. So those are my concerns. I also have, when we met, I think it was in November of 21, there was a fence with barbed wire, and that barbed wire is illegal. And I had mentioned back then that regardless of the outcome, it should be taken down, and it hasn't been taken down. it should be taken down back in November when the application, when I brought it to the application's, light. So, and you still haven't done that. So,
Yeah, our only problem, Gary, with that, and my client wants to comply with that in every respect, is that our lease is contingent upon this approval, and he doesn't have access to the premises. I advised the owner's attorney of that, and he advised me that he would advise his client to immediately resolve that problem. He should do it regardless, I agree with you.
and one other concern I had, and I'm not sure how you addressed it, but, we are 20 feet from, Goshen Street, and on that corner, you have two delis. You know, you have one on one side and one on the other side. You know, I don't know if the third deli, is. Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree it's a better use than what's there, but I don't know if that's a perfect use there as well.
Right, again, we had some discussion last time, but I agree, I'm gonna refer to the applicant's testimony, but there was discussion, we'll bring that back, about the fact that this type of supermarket will offer, specialized products and things that are somewhat different in terms of scope and nature than a deli product.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for Mr. Alcatraz.
Thank you, Gary. Any commissioner? Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Commissioner White,
Yes, Commissioner.
regarding the parallel parking, what are you looking to consider changing in that area?
Actually, we're not changing anything. It's the existing drop now.
So this is the final?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, Marco, can we open it up to the public?
Yes, to the members of the public, if you have questions of this witness with regard to the testimony you heard, you can call 973-321-1579. And when prompted to do so, enter meeting ID number 711-680-001. Again, this is your opportunity to ask questions about the testimony you heard. You'll have an opportunity at the very end to make statements or give a comment. But for now, if you have questions, call 973-321-1579. Enter meeting ID number 711-680-001. Let's give it a moment to see if anybody calls.
And Mr. LaRocca and Chairman and Commissioners, we have no callers at this time on this particular case. You may proceed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baralt, I have a
Yes.
question, Mr. Marikanda.
Yes, sir.
Let me see. Regarding the 11 spaces provided, it says here parallel spaces are undersized. Can you elaborate on that? And also, I have the lease. It's a month to month. What is the possibility of having an extended lease on that?
Right, again, I appreciate the question. I think the first question is more for,
Yes, well,
in terms of his expertise, but on the lease situation, I'm working actively with the owner's attorney. Fortunately, the owner of our property, which is the subject of our application, also owns that adjoining lot. And we've worked out our general business lease, which is a long-term lease, 10-year lease with hopefully options that will be accepted down the road. And we're working on this extension of the 2 spaces adjoining, which will, as both Gary and our expert talked about earlier, right now, all he will commit to is, not a specific term, but rather month to month. But we think there's strong possibilities that we're going to extend that as we move forward. But it's all I can offer to you now. Matter of fact, my client's very interested in buying this property, and that might also become a reality, which of course will give him that additional parking as well. So that's where we are now on that issue. I can call Anwar back on the parallel parking, again, and do the best he can in terms of explaining that, hopefully, Anwar?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, no, let me just share my screen for a second so I can explain. Okay, so we have some space here, it's not that much, we're about like 4 feet on, I don't know if you can see my cursor here.
Yep.
Between the property line and the last parking space. So probably we can maybe like enlarge a couple of them to make them 22, or maybe like all of them to be 21 feet. We can add a foot for the length of each parking space. To disturb the handicap parking space, that's why trying to have the 5 feet clear there. We can make them 21 by 8, and as you say, with the condition, it's related to the lease of the next property. So, but we can make them look.
Okay. Gary, would that be sufficient if they do this adjustment? You still consider the parallel spaces undersized?
Well, they would still be undersized, Commissioner. He's just trying to make them, they're supposed to be 22 feet, is the standard code, but he's stretching it a little bit more, you know.
So on the 11 spaces that are provided, those spaces are undersized? Is that my?
No, not all 11, just the 3 parallel spaces.
Okay,
So 2 spaces.
So 8 spaces are okay, and then you got 3 spaces that are undersized.
Right, but those 2 spaces are under the month-to-month lease.
Okay, all right.
So you have some issues.
Okay, all right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners before we move on? Okay, Mr. Maracando, you can continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call the applicant at this time. I'm not sure if it's a father and son team, the applicant. I'm not quite sure which are going to be on here tonight.
I'm here, Mr. Maracando.
Okay, very good. All right, you can be sworn.
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you please state your full name for the record, please, and spell it?
First name is Hamad, Hammad. Last name is Abuhadba, Abuhadba.
Okay, thank you, Ahmad. You are one of the principals of the Alamana Food Market Incorporated, is that right?
Yes.
And as such, you're fully familiar with this proposed project?
Yes.
Okay, good. You have some experience in the food industry as well?
Yes.
Just tell us a little background quickly.
I've been doing this for about 20 years, so I know this. The business is a meat market / grocery store, Middle Eastern grocery and Middle Eastern foods.
Right, so you've got some specialization in your products that makes this proposal unique, you believe?
Yes.
Okay, and other delis in the area are not similar to what you'd like to do?
No, this is a whole different thing.
Okay, and your scope of your product range is different?
Yes.
Okay, good. You've heard all the testimony of Anwar on your behalf?
Yes.
And you agree with his testimony as well as the revised plans that we've last submitted to the board?
Yeah, I agree with him.
Okay, and I indicated earlier it's a 7-day business as most supermarkets are, that's correct?
Yes.
And I indicated 9 to 7, was that about right?
Yeah, 9 to 7.
Okay, good. And I called it a family business. It's about 4 employees, all family or close friends?
Yeah, family, close friends.
Okay. And you'll be rotating the hours among yourselves, obviously?
Yes.
Okay. You understand about the importance of having the garbage pickup occur before business hours as well?
Yeah, I understand that. And the dumpsters, they're not big dumpsters. They're 2-yard dumpsters. Usually they get picked up 3 times a week, and they have wheels on them, so we just push them out.
Okay.
So We can push them out of the driveway, out of the garage, and the truck takes it.
And you believe it can be accomplished without any interference with parking?
Yes, 100%. Right now, I push it 3 times a week. I'm in the farmer's market.
Right.
When the truck comes, I always push it out for him in the street. So he picks it up and takes it.
So you've got the experience in this industry within Paterson, and you want to have your own independent location, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I think we've covered it.
Okay, thank you. Gary, do you have any questions?
Yeah, a few, Chairman.
Okay, go ahead.
So, okay, you have, I guess your son would be in the office upstairs, and then you have a butcher. I'm assuming you're gonna have one butcher. I don't know if you have more. You also propose 3 registers. So let's say you have one or two people there.
Yeah.
You have your displays that need to, the shelving that need to be addressed. And you also have a cart area, somebody to get the carts. That's, if I count correctly, that's six employees, and you have 3 spaces. Now, if you cut that down to employee parking, you're gonna have 2 spaces, one handicap space, and 2 lease spaces. So, and you need 18. So,
Cash, I think the cash register is only 1 cash register. It shouldn't be 3.
they show 3.
That's probably a mistake then. It should be 1 register.
Okay, you're gonna have 1 butcher?
Yeah, 1 butcher.
Okay, somebody for the shelves or to clean the bathrooms or something, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have probably somebody from the local, help us out, stuff like that.
Okay, you also have a cart area, so somebody's gotta be active with that. Number 1, you have a school across the street. Number 2, you have short parking, so you can't have these carts all over the street. So you're gonna have somebody there just for that, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So we're over 3. You have 3 employee spaces in the garage. So that is a concern, but I'm going to defer the parking to the commissioners. And you also said 9 to 7. That's 7 days a week, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the dumpsters, you're going to have a butcher's section, so they have, and you're going to also need recycling. So I understand the 2-yard. Hopefully, they're enough to handle what you need to handle.
Yeah, they get picked up 3 times a week, so it's perfect.
Okay. And the other thing is, you have to ensure that they come before you open.
Yeah, that's not a problem. They usually do come early in the morning, 5, 6 in the morning.
I think there's a code. I don't know if they could come before 6, but that being said, let's hope that works. Okay.
I have just one follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chairman. With regard to your customer base, a lot of it at the farmer's market, and what you anticipate here, will it be people that are within the neighborhood?
It's 90% of our business is local. It's the whole area.
And do you find that people will walk in on that basis?
Yeah, they walk in, yes.
Right. And you said 1 or 2 of your employees would hopefully be from the neighborhood outside of your family, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Gary. Any commissioners?
Chairman, did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Any commissioners have any question for the applicant?
I do.
Commissioner Watkins.
Oh, yep, go first, Commissioner Watkins.
Yes, Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner.
Hello, Mr. Ani, how are you?
How you doing?
So I heard you say that you'll be open 7 days a week and garbage pickup is 3 times a week.
Yes.
And your garbage disposals or your garbage, you said they were small. So,
yeah, I think the 2-yard, 3-yard.
So the residents don't have to worry about, or you shouldn't have to worry about any garbage being on the ground versus
No.
in a dumpster where it should be, correct?
Yes.
Especially since you have a butcher there. So we already know that you're having meats and all that stuff there, and it needs to be in the dumpster and not on the ground.
Yes.
And Gary talked about the parking, which is a major concern because You said there's not a problem now. Well, now you don't have the supermarket, but when the supermarket comes, you have to consider all of that. And what you don't want to do is jeopardize your friendly neighbors. So we don't want to do anything to jeopardize the neighbors and the issues that Gary mentioned and make it a worse issue once you open the store and the residents be affected. So please consider the residents, okay?
We definitely agree. We really worked hard to make this a better parking scenario, and we feel very confident we can serve this neighborhood this way.
And one more thing, we are speaking with the landlord of buying the building and buying the adjacent lot. So we're in the process of probably buying the building. So if we do buy the building, we are looking to expand the parking lot, everything, and knock down the building next door. So we are trying to do something bigger and better.
Okay, so you're trying, that doesn't mean that's gonna
Yeah.
be on the application as far as
Yes.
tonight. We don't know how long that's gonna take.
Yeah, but that's the future. So hopefully if there's a future, that is the plan.
Okay, because Gary talked about many issues. All right, that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Monaro?
Commissioner Monaro, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Ani, good evening. I just have a question. The shopping carts, what's going on and how will they be used? Are they going to be allowed out?
They're little mini carts. It just to go. They're small carts. I'm not sure the size of them. They're just for like inside the store. So you put your stuff. You walk around. You put it in the register. They're not big shopping carts.
Right. But will they be allowed out into the parking lot area?
Yeah, they'll be allowed into the parking lot.
And will someone be monitoring those so that they're
Yes,
not
we're
being
gonna have somebody for that. Yes.
And try to wait until the question is finished, okay?
Thank you, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it for now.
Commissioner Baralt, Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Burrow.
This is for Gary. I heard somehow that the garbage was gonna be picked up twice a week. But now we just said to the Commissioner Watkins that it was 3 times a week. Which one is right?
The expert, our expert architect indicated he believed it was 2, but the applicant, who of course is the operator, indicates he's gonna make sure that it's done 3 times.
So it is 3 times.
Right.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other commissioner? Marco, do you want to open up to the public?
Yes. Again, to the members of the public, if you have questions of this applicant, you can call 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID number 711-680-001. Let's give it a moment to see if we have any callers.
Chairman, Commissioner Monaro.
Callers, I apologize. Go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner.
What were the hours of operation again, just to be clear?
9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Maracanda, you can continue.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That would conclude our witnesses and testimony. I'll just summarize briefly. Thank you for your attention to this matter again this evening. This applicant is a longtime family, Paterson family, who's operated and is extremely experienced in this specific type of business. They want to break from the farmers market area and establish this service, which again, the particular food products and the nature of this kind of supermarket are much different than surrounding delis in that area. This is an area which needs this type of service. We've worked really, really hard to modify these plans to make them more amenable to the concerns of the staff. And we do think we've got a system that works in terms of parking. We are working hard to expand that parking even further. We accept whatever conditions the board would establish vis-a-vis the designated drop-off area and pickup area on Getty Avenue. Town Wire is prepared to modify the plan as per Gary's recommendation regarding the width of the length of the parallel parking spaces. We've done a lot of work to make this an application that will serve this community in a positive way. I think based upon the applicant's track record and his ability to present an application that hopefully meets the concerns of your staff and your members, this is an application, in our opinion, that warrants and justifies an approval. And again, very important, in the MU zone, we have an auto repair shop there, which is obviously a much more intense and much more impactful type of use on the surrounding residential areas. And we believe that this is a much more positive allocation of the space for the public good. Thank you.
Commissioners, can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to,
Sorry, Gary.
that's okay. Commissioners, this is a use variance, so obviously you need 5 affirmative votes. The few issues I have, number one, the barbed wire on the fence is illegal and it has to come down. Maybe the secretary can send somebody there from the building department or inspections, but no matter whose fence it is, it has to come down, and it should have been down. That's number one. Number two, commissioners, you have to take into consideration that lease. It is a concern. I know Mr. LaRocca always insists on a 10-year lease. If this doesn't come to fruition, there could be a problem. If there is a motion made, and also the parking, I'm going to always defer to the commissioners. There are 7 spaces that are deficient and 3 spaces that are undersized. And also, if there is a motion made, it should be made with the approval of the mayor and council to give a 50-foot strip for loading and unloading. Because if that does not come, there'll be loading and unloading double parked, and obviously you'll have a problem. So if the commissioners decide to go with that, that and the lease should be part of your motion. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd just like to make sure that it's clear that that parking lease is relating to those 2 spaces in addition to the parking on site.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Commissioners, can I have a motion for this application?
Chairman, Commissioner Minoru.
Yes, Commissioner.
This, I'm all for all businesses trying to start something new. However, I just feel like I have to take the school into consideration and the traffic that happens on Getty Ave. I'm very sure the parking, like Gary said, is already tough. That neighborhood, I know it very well. I'm sorry, I'd like to make a motion to deny the application.
Commissioner Watkins, second.
Okay.
Chairman, may I proceed with the vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Burrows.
I motion to deny it.
That's yes on denial. Commissioner Furman, yes or no on denial? Commissioner Furman,
Yes, Madam Secretary, I'm here.
your vote yes or no on denial?
I'm very concerned about the parking. It's a big issue going on in our city of Paterson. And I understand that they're trying to improve the business, but I would like to see the parking issue solved. This time my vote is no.
Thank you. Well, yes or no on denial? You're against the denial or you for the denial?
Yes, on denying.
Thank you. Commissioner Minauro.
Yes on the denial.
Thank you. Commissioner Watkins.
Yes on denial.
Commissioner White, yes or no on denial?
Yes on denial.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Arenas, yes or no on denial?
Yes on denial.
Thank you. And Chairman Rohim, yes or no on denial?
Yes on denial.
You have 7 in the affirmative on the denial. This application has been denied. You may proceed, Chairman.
Chairman, before we proceed, can we give the court reporter a 5-minute break? And can I ask you to call me on my cell phone, Chairman?
Yes.
Let's take 5 minutes.
Okay.
For what we do for the city? Highway. Okay. Sharon, do the work.
All right, Madam Secretary, is everyone back?
I'm waiting for the court reporter. Once she returns, we can begin.
I'm here.
Okay, well, everyone back? Every commissioner?
Commissioner
Yes,
Miles?
I'm back.
Yes, Maggie.
If anybody has a camera, can you just put it on just for the vote? And then you can go off if you like afterward, but so I could see who's back. Okay, I think we're ready to begin, Chairman. You may proceed.
Okay, Maggie. We'll hear number 4 next. Is Mr. Marcando the attorney for this?
Mr. Maracanda?
No, I don't have number 4.
That would be Mr. Rubin. Mr. Rubin, are you ready, sir?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Mr. Rubin, may I interject that, pardon me, interrupt. May I ask the chair, do you think we're going to reach number 3 if we're starting number 4 now?
Mr. Rubin, how many witnesses do you have?
3.
3?
the architect, planner, and a representative of the owner.
I could,
How
if I
long
may
do you
speak.
think this will take you?
Is Mr. Williams your planner?
Of course.
Okay.
As Mr. Williams is ready to go.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Question of Mr. Maraconda.
Yes.
Just to let you know, on item number 3, we have 8 objectors so far. They're still calling in, just to give you a heads up on that.
Okay.
Mr. LaRocca, thank you.
I appreciate those comments, Madam Secretary. In view of the fact that you're taking number 4, we would ask for this matter to be carried then. Sorry to interrupt, Mike.
Okay, Alan.
You know, discretion is a better part of valor, right?
You got it, Alan.
Mr. LaRocca, am I ready to give this a date, sir?
Chairman, I think we could give it a date, right?
Yes, we can, and then also Maggie, I'm assuming the next day we give them, that'll be live meeting in person.
I wouldn't know that right now, but I will definitely make sure that we have an answer for that. The mayor hasn't gotten back to me on anything.
I already spoke to him, and he said we're good for next week.
Okay, then as soon as I get something in an email, I will email everyone on this board as well.
Before we give the date, let's make sure the objectors know what's going on. You have them physically on the line?
They should be on the line. Let me just make sure with IT. I think everyone's on. One moment. Everyone is on. We can start with one, or how would you like to proceed?
No, we don't need to have them. I just wanna make sure they're on and they hear. And then what we'll do is, I don't know if you're able to, look, let's get the date first.
Okay, one moment. That would be July 28th, 2022, Mr. Maraconda, at 7:30 p.m.
Understood, and I was advised, everyone, Madam Secretary and Mr. Chairman and Council, to notify all my cases in May for in person. So that's the way we did it. So I'm going to assume, Mr. Chairman, that this matter would be in person in July.
Yes.
I would prefer to let me check tomorrow, and I'll send out an email.
Maggie,
I really think it's important, with all due respect, because I'm not gonna be notified and have to, you know, if it's gonna stay in person as per my notice.
Maggie, in person is fine. That's fine. We can do in person.
Alright, so, to members of the public, especially, I know there's eight objectors that are on the line. This matter is not going to be heard this evening. Rather, it's going to be carried to July 28, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. And it'll be in person as of now. Now, if that changes though, Mr. Maraconda, for any reason, then notice will have to be done.
We absolutely agree, yes. Let's hope that health conditions warrant staying in person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to the members of the public, if everything is the same and you don't receive new notice, your notice is this evening, that it'll be July 28, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. at City Hall. Having said that, if anybody has any issues that you need to address with regard to the new date, any concerns you need to raise, again, not about the application itself, because it's not going to be heard this evening. On July 28th, you would have the opportunity to ask questions of the witnesses and give a statement and comments at the very end. If you have any issues with regard to the matter being carried to July 28th, please call 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID number 711-680-001. We're going to see if anybody calls. And I know, again, we have callers on the phone. Can you just ask them if they have any issues with the date? Madam Secretary?
Okay, any
Make sure they-
objector, excuse me, by name?
You don't need to, I just don't know if they need to be heard.
Well, they can hear you as well, so you can continue to ask. Is there any objector on the line? Okay, please, may I call one person? Who would you like to speak with, Mr. LaRocca? You got 8 people.
I don't need to speak to
at the
any of
same
them,
time.
I don't need to speak to any of them if they don't have an issue with the date, that's what I'm trying to figure
All
out.
right, well, there's 8 of them, so I can't have them all talk at once. So I either call them one by one, or you just address it as a whole, I don't know.
Mark, just as a whole, so.
Listen, if anybody has any type of issue with the date, call, hang up and call back in and we'll know that you have an issue. We'll give it a minute and say, we're not gonna address 8 people just to make sure they know about the date. Let's give it a moment, see if anyone calls back in.
No, this is just.
Please mute your mic if you're talking, thank you. Is there anyone that is objecting to this application, have any issue with the date of this meeting being carried to July 28th?
No.
If you want to say something, please unmute yourself by hitting *6 on your phone, and make sure your TV is off or your volume is down, so we don't get any interference. Please do so at this moment, please. *6 if you'd like to speak. I don't see any issues, Mr. LaRocca, sir.
Hello? Hi, can I just ask a question real quick? Why this is not being heard tonight after we waited an hour and a half to speak?
Because we can't get to it by the end of the evening. It's too long of an application, there's another application, it won't be heard.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so again, for the members of the public, the new date is July 28, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Mariconda. We can.
Thank you.
Item number 4.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
All objectors, please hang up your phones and remove yourself from the meeting, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rubin, you can continue.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. I am Michael Rubin, attorney, 1330 Hamburg Turnpike, Wayne Township. We represent Paterson Falls Realty Group LLC as to premises at 456, 458 Ellison Street in the city. This is in the 5th Ward redevelopment RA1 zone, which is a 1 and 2 family homes. This is a existing boarding house building, which is a pre-existing non-conforming use now for a number of years, and it is our intention to take that building and change it into studio apartments, same number of units, and I would have our architect explain how we were going to do that. Eric, he is on the call,
Yes, I am here, Mr. Rubin.
and if he can be sworn.
Please raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Say your full name for the record and please spell it.
Sure. Eric Liepins, first name Eric, E-R-I-K, last name Liepins, L-I-E-P-I-N-S.
And Erica, have you been before this board or any of the boards in Paterson before?
The historic board in Paterson, but not the planning board.
Just give us a brief indication of your background.
Sure. So I am the principal architect at Zelta Design. Our office is at 45 Sussex Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. I am a registered architect in the state of New Jersey. My license is in good standing, and I have appeared in front of numerous boards throughout the state of New Jersey.
And you are familiar with the plan of development for this application?
Yes.
I would ask that our architect be allowed.
Yes, we accept your credential.
Thank you. Eric.
Mr. Rubin, Gary Paparosi, just before you start, I just want to make note that the tax bill has the current use as a 3-family. It may be a boarding house, but it's taxed as a 3-family. That's the current tax bill.
It is a boarding house without any question. There are,
Well, I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning what the tax bill says.
well, boarding houses are just not allowed, so whatever it is, it is. Eric, could you please advise as what is the plan of development? What are we doing with this building?
Sure, I will go ahead and share my screen here. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Good.
Great. So we are presenting a proposal for a renovation of an existing structure, which is in the RP 5W zone. The lot is a 50 by 100, and its most recent use was a rooming house, as Mr. Rubin had mentioned, had 12 rooms with communal access to the kitchen and bathrooms. Due to the inhabitable state of the building, we're proposing to renovate the property by utilizing the existing foundation to rebuild the structure. There'll be a vertical and horizontal enlargement of this structure. The existing footprint is 1,429 square feet, and the proposed footprint is 2,221 square feet. The amount of units will be 12 in order to maintain the previous unit count. And by having 12 studios instead of rooms, it will provide a much improved quality of living for the occupants, considering they'll each have their own bathroom and small kitchens.
So what were you saying that, Eric, you're saying that heretofore and what has been going on in this place is that there were communal bathrooms and kitchen, that no unit had its own facilities.
That is correct.
And that would end with this proposal.
Correct. Each tenant would have their own private facility.
Okay, tell us, what each floor will look like.
Sure. So here is a plan and a colorized rendering of the first floor. The 3 floors are very similar. So on each level, there'll be 4 units, with the opposite corners on the 2nd and 3rd floor having balconies. The square footages for the units range between 325 and 348 square feet per unit. There are 2 means of egress, either through the front or through the rear. Again, opposite corners. So here's the first floor plan. The second floor plan is very similar. Here you'll just see that the opposite corners have balconies. And same with the third floor plan. Going back to the first floor, you can see here the outdoor space. So on the outdoor space on the ground level, we're providing usable space with seating in the front and the back, landscaped areas, paved areas, which make it quite a enjoyable space to be.
You have the wrong, the wrong view up for that.
Well, this does show in the color here, but I can switch to this if you'd prefer.
Oh, that's what I was looking at, because you're showing the landscape.
Yes. Here you'll also see parking in the driveway for 2 vehicles. There is a trash enclosure is provided, and a board-on-board fence that encloses the sides and rear of the property. If I go back to the rendering here, front facade has a brick finish, and the sides and rear have a stucco finish. The top of the structure has a cornice, and the building is 40 feet tall. In my opinion here, the proposed renovation is a significant improvement to the neighborhood and the occupants rather than a rooming house. And the design of the building lends itself to the redevelopment plan, and it's an attractive design and building type that the owner can add to his portfolio.
Is it generally the elevation the same as heretofore? We're not making this higher.
I don't have the exact height of the building, but it is currently a 2.5-story building, and this is a 3 full-story building. So it is approximately the same height.
And you know what the neighborhood looks like. Will this fit into the neighborhood that we're designing?
I think so, yes.
Good. Those are the questions I would have, Mr. Chairman, of this witness.
Mr. Chairman, can I,
Yes, Marco, go ahead. Sorry, Gary.
that's okay, that's okay. It's Mr. Leipens, is that? Leipens? Okay, yes, sir, okay. Well, let's, if you go to sheet A1, which is your site plan. Okay, you're proposing the garbage right on the sidewalk. The dumpsters are on the basically right on the property line in the front, which is a variance. But why was not consideration put it in the yard? Because you know you have 12 units, so you're going to have some garbage and recycling. Now the recycling, I'm sure, is separate. It also has to have a cover, but you don't have any. I didn't see any detail on the dumpsters, but. Why was no consideration? First of all, not only are you on the sidewalk, but you're proposing a bench right in front of the dumpster. So, you know, they both don't fit. You know, I have some concerns about that. That's just, you know, it's just doesn't fit. You know.
Eric, can the dumpster be placed anywhere else on the property, and for example, in the rear of this property?
Yeah, we can locate that on the side at the end of the driveway. That is not a problem.
And so it would not be in the front yard any longer?
No.
And if the board act favorably on this application, that could be a condition that it be placed on the side of the building rather than in the front. And can we know that in other applications, and we will make the representation that there will be a private hauler for a garage for this site, and you'll get that from the representative of the owner. But can the refuge trucks get into that area and out without a problem?
Yeah, Mr. Rubin, if I could finish all my questions for the architect, and then maybe you could address them all later if you want to. If not, I'm sure Mr. Williams will address them. I don't see any air conditioning units, no P-TEC system or any air conditioning. Is there any proposed?
Yes. So the idea here was to have condensing units on the roof. With indoor air handlers in each unit.
Okay, you have to show that as well, Larkins.
Oh, I understand that, but they would not be seen from the street. It would be behind the parapet.
Right. Well, usually you show something in the also in the floor plan where it's the units are placed, just like you would laundry. Now, I didn't see any laundry. Is there washer and dryer in each unit?
Switch here to a floor plan. No, there's no laundry in each unit.
Okay. I have, since you have your zoning chart up, I'm just going to go, I know that Mr. Williams is there and will address all the variances. But you have your chart up, so I'm just going to go over them with you, and then if Mr. Williams disagrees, he will make note of that, or Mr. Rubin. Yeah. I have 4D variances proposed. You have a variance for use, floor area ratio, density, and height. I have, minimum lot area, is 10,000 square feet, 5,000 is proposed. Minimum lot width, 100 feet, frontage, 50 feet is proposed. Minimum front setback is 20 feet, 12.83 feet is proposed. Minimum rear setback is 25 feet, 20.04 feet is proposed. Minimum side for one side is 15 feet, 5.67 feet is proposed. Both sides, 30 feet is required, 16.25 feet is proposed. We also have a maximum height of 40 feet where 35 is proposed, that's a D variance. Floor area ratio, 0.75, maximum 1.33 is proposed. Density only allows for 4 units, 12 is proposed. Open space, I had a rough time calculating it. Also, I was calculating space you had in front of the garbage area, which really shouldn't have been. So the minimum open space requirement is 1,800 square feet. You have approximately 1,200 square feet. Parking requirement, 22 spaces are required, 2 are provided. No parking 3 feet to the property line, 1.7 feet is proposed, that's not listed. And the dumpsters in the front yard, which I think you're going to address, and that would be changed. Now, the only other issue, sir, is it may have been a rooming house, I don't know. I will take Mr. Rubin's word for it. But the difference here is the entire house had 3 kitchens and 4 bathrooms. Now you have 12 kitchens and 12 bathrooms. That's where your density comes in, and I know Mr. Rubin will address that. Also, on the right side of the property, there's a fence with barbed wire. If you were here for the past application, barbed wire is illegal when it is next to a residence. I'm not sure whose fence it is. I thought it was the applicant's fence. In any case, regardless of the outcome of the application, it should be removed, whether it's yours or the neighbor's.
We understand that since many years ago, I wrote the ordinance.
Okay.
Legal.
Yeah, okay. All right, those are the issues I have, Mr. Chairman. Any questions, I will gladly answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this witness isn't going anywhere. He's going to stay. If you want us to go right to our next witness to answer most of these questions.
Okay.
Mr. LaRocca?
Any commissioners have any question?
Commissioner Watkins for Mr. Eric. How you doing, Mr. Eric?
Good, how are you?
Great. The photo of that building that you showed the commissioners, please explain to us, in that photo, on each side of that building, are you rebuilding the houses on the side of what you're proposing? Because if not, that photo is very misleading.
So this is a rendering of our property. We designed our property. This is only for 456 Ellison. The adjacent properties are not in our scope, and therefore we did not survey or design those properties. So they are used as just to show context.
Where someone that may be looking, because our meetings are on YouTube. So anyone that's looking to move to Paterson, and when they look at this meeting tonight, and they see that photo, they're gonna think they're gonna move in that location, and on the side of that house, that apartment building, that's what they're gonna move to. And that's not true at all. So again, the photo was very misleading, and that's all I have to say about your photo right now. It's very misleading.
Any other commissioners?
Commissioner Baralt, I have a
Yes.
question for the architect. May I proceed?
Yes.
Mr. Lippings, is there any laundry room anywhere in this building, this new construction?
No.
Okay. That doesn't say too much, but, okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners?
Commissioner White,
Yes, Commissioner Weiss.
for the spaces that are proposed, that you've actually put together, which I guess is like 12 units, and they're single units with 2 parking spaces, and I guess that would be in the driveway. Now, knowing that area, the parking is definitely an issue. So is the garbage and the trash in that area as well. How did you configure this with the number of apartments that you have now, which is, okay, it was 4 and 4, to now 12 and 12, which everyone may or may not have a car, but it's going to be very tight trying to park their cars after trying to also live in this area. So was there any consideration into considering about, I don't know, putting additional parking on the lot itself, maybe in the back or somewhere?
So the existing use is 12 separate occupants, and so is this. So we are not increasing the amount of tenants that would be occupying this space. Therefore, the parking remains the same as it currently stands.
But as mentioned and as on record, this is a 3-family home, which was with 3 apartments on 1 apartment on each floor. So you may have about 1 to 2 tenants maybe on each floor, 2, 4, 6. Now you're looking at 12, which is additional 6 people, and may have 6, another 6 cars in that area. Because the rooming house was just rooming. They were more like people just renting the room, which more than likely they didn't have a car, so they were walking. So now you've introduced this new, aesthetic of a building, which is a great looking building. But to have those people move into that area, they would definitely probably come with a car. And the current situation in that area does not allow for too much additional parking unless you're going to park it on site.
So this is a renovation of an existing structure. Therefore, the parking is the same is the same accommodations as it would be as the building is being kept and renovated and enlarged. So adding parking to this site and making this keeping the building as we're proposing is not feasible.
Mr. Lippins, you're enlarging that building, in the front, on the sides, and in the rear, and up. So you might be keeping the same building, but it's not the same building.
Thank you. That was my question.
Yeah, and the other thing that Commissioner White was alluding to is if there are 12 boarding house residents, that's 12. 12 apartments maybe have a husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, so you may have 24. So you don't have necessarily the same amount of occupancy as you alluded to. That's not the correct fact. So,
or it could be that today there are 24 or 30 or 35. We don't know. What we do know is that this has been a boarding house facility now for a number of years, and it could have a great number of people. So when we look at a hypothetical and say what could be in the future, we don't know what the past has been. It could have been an awful big number. So quite frankly, that's an argument, most respectfully, that doesn't hold water in this context. This is a pre-existing non-conforming use, and we are doing everything we can for this building to do away with the pre-existing non-conforming use and putting in something that's worthwhile.
Mr. Rubin, it's not a pre-existing non-conforming use. It's an illegal use. It's a 3-family, and it's assessed as a 3-family. If somebody converted it to a boarding house, they did it without approvals. They did it illegally, and it could have been closed down if the officials We're informed about it.
So
So
I don't know what year it was. I don't know how many years it has been in existence. We
I know, but I'm going by the current tax bill, which says it's a 3-family, so they could go there tomorrow and say, okay, listen, you know what? I know it's boarded up, but if it was still being used, they could go there tomorrow and say, okay, everybody out, it's a 3-family.
But that's not indicative of the zone that you, I'm sorry, but that's not the law. You go by what the tax records are. The tax records are maybe outdated. We don't know that. And there's been no testimony as to that. All we know is what the present use has been for the last number of years, and that's what we present. It's been a boarding facility now for a number of years, and apparently somebody must know about it in the city because it's been allowed to exist. In any case, we are ready for our next witness if there are any other questions.
Mark, do you want to open it up to the public?
Yeah, why don't we do that? To the members of the public, if you have any questions of this witness, please call 973-321-1579. Enter meeting ID number 711-680-001. We'll give it a moment and see if anybody calls.
Chairman and Commissioners, we have no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Rubin, you can continue.
Forward.
Yes.
Here. We can move forward?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. George Williams, if he could be sworn.
Please raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I most certainly do.
You say your full name for the record, please?
Certainly. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is George Weedle Williams. Mr. Rubin, did you want Mr. Reed to go first, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I would like you to go.
Okay.
Mr. Williams, you have appeared before this board and planning board on numerous occasions. Mr. Chairman, I assume Mr. Williams' credentials are allowed.
Yes, we accept this credential.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As long as he be quick.
That is not Mr. Williams. No.
And Mr. Paparazzi already jinxed that. That's going to be it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Williams. I'm sorry.
Make it before 12 o'clock.
Mr. Williams, we have before us, let us call it an interesting application. Could you please give us the planning diameters of what we have before us? What are we doing?
Certainly, and Commissioners, good evening again. It is definitely an unusual and interesting application for some of the reasons that Mr. Paparazzi and our design team identified early on. I'm going to be a bit methodical in my testimony so that I address all the issues that are perhaps on the surface and some that are less obvious. In terms of our preparation for this hearing, we did review the 5th Ward redevelopment plan and your master plan, the 2014 master plan. Of course, all that in the context of the municipal land use law. Did review the site plan and site plan application are before you this evening. In addition to that, we looked at the literature and case law in support of our application, and we visited the site on a couple of occasions prior to tonight. Finally, we did review your board planner's report dated April 23rd of this year. In terms of the property description, very briefly, our design expert, Eric, did a good job of describing the property very briefly. For the record, it's property commonly known as 456 Ellison Street, identified in your municipal tax records as block number 4208, lot number 15, it is a lot that's comprised of approximately 5,000 square feet, and it is located in your Sandy Hill neighborhood in the RA1 district of the 5th Ward redevelopment plan. The intent of the RA1 district is to permit single and two-family dwellings, and in certain instances, mixed-use development on corner lots. It is further the intent of this district, and I quote, to maintain the residential character of the neighborhood. In terms of the project description, again, our design expert did a great job of representing the project as is proposed in this application. You saw the rendering, which is a far cry better than what exists today, and I'll share an exhibit with you in a few moments. As you know, what is proposed and what exists is a 3-story multifamily residential, and we'll talk about what the property records provide in terms of information about the site and what we know as has been the custom and usage of the site for at least a decade plus, according to the applicant. According to the applicant, the building contains contained 12 living quarters, and I'm going to characterize those living quarters as boarding rooms, and I'll talk a bit more a bit later about what a boarding house is as opposed to what a multifamily dwelling with efficiency or studio units is intended to be. Parenthetically, I would submit to the board, and you're going to hear from our applicant, or my client, your applicant, that what was intended by this applicant is to be a modernization of what was there when they purchased the property. Again, what they purchased was what is tantamount to a boarding room. What they're providing is a modernization which includes 12 living units, all efficiencies or studios. The primary difference being that the studios or efficiencies provide private restrooms and a cooking facility. So again, the existing dwelling units or bedrooms in the unit in the building when they purchased was 12. What's being proposed is 12. To that point, as testified by our design expert, the first floor will contain 4 studio units, a storage closet, and stairwell access to the upper floors. The second and third floors will also contain 4 studio units, a storage closet, and stairwell access. You saw some of the balconies that are proposed on the rendering that was shared a moment ago. I would just pause here and say that all of what you see is a vast improvement over what exists today. Again, a 3-story building with 12 living occupancy accommodations. Parking, I just clarified the record based on my site visit and the testimony that you're going to hear from the applicant. There are no on-site parking accommodations currently, and what's proposed would be an increase of 2 on-site parking spaces being provided. The driveway leads to the walkway at the rear and rear yard property. The rear yard will be improved to include some open air space and passive recreation for the tenancy. The refuse, as you've heard, will be reconfigured so that it is not in the front yard, and I think that is a better design alternative. There are some plantings, landscaping, and lighting both in the front and rear, and the lighting, of course, on all sides. In terms of the relief, I'm going to submit that we concur with your board planner's recitation of the relief. I'm going to offer a qualifier, but according to what your board planner's report states, there are several D variances. In his report, he cites a D1 use variance, and that is for the proposed non-conforming multifamily use. Mr. Paparazzi cites a D4 or floor area ratio variance for the 1.3 or 1.33 floor area ratio as opposed to the maximum permitted, which is 0.75. Maximum density, 38 dwelling units, that's prorated, and what we are proposing is 12. So prorated at 4, we're proposing 12. Maximum building height, 35 feet is the maximum permitted, 40 is proposed, and I think our architect has mentioned that what exists now is pretty much what will be proposed. There are several C variances, and you'll hear me discuss this both in the context of a D2 and a D1 variance. I would argue or submit to the board that if you were to approve the use, whether it's a D2 or D1, that those bulk and area deviations could be subsumed under the granting of the D1 to the board. As you can imagine, this is a pre-existing non-conforming standard. We're not changing that. Minimum front yard setback, 20 foot is required, 12.83 is proposed. Minimum rear yard setback, 25 foot required, 20 foot 0.04 proposed. Minimum side yard, 15 foot is required. This is on one side, by the way. 5.67 is proposed. Minimum side yard, 30 foot is required. 16.25 is proposed. And finally, minimum open space, 1,800 square feet is required. Well, 1,278.3 is proposed. Parking spaces, I touched upon that earlier. 12 spaces required, which is 1 per bedroom. And what we are proposing is 2 spaces. Front yard parking within the setback line is 3 foot is the maximum permitted, and 3 foot is the standard, 1.75 is proposed. Those are the standards that are called out by your board planner. Again, we concur with those. I will just offer to the board as the applicant designed or purchased this property and proposed its application. The intent was really to take the existing non-conforming use, which included by custom and usage 12 units, 12 occupants, or 12 rooms for occupants. To Mr. Rubin's point, we don't know how many occupants were in each room, but 12 rooms or 12 occupancies, and converting those occupancies to a more modern and safe build out so that they're now studios, giving an enhanced quality of life condition for the tenants, providing both private restroom facilities and private cooking facilities. I'll talk a bit more about the technicality of those definitions a bit further in my testimony, because there is a difference, and that's why I'm saying I concur with your board planner. But it's difficult to hear this application without thinking about the applicant's intent, which was really just to modernize the derelict boarding room facility at this location. That's perhaps a good segue into some of the planning literature and concepts before I get into the exhibit showing you what exists now at the site and the surrounding area. In terms of the planning issues, again, I find it's a very intriguing application, in large part because while we are conceding that we'll seek a D1 use variance, it is hard to escape the idea that really this sounds more based on the case law and municipal land use law like a D2 variance based solely upon the custom and usage of this property, notwithstanding that the tax records may not have reflected the custom and usage of this site for a decade plus. Pre-existing uses. The type of housing already exists on the site, as I mentioned, 12 occupancies on the site, and we're proposing a similar housing typology, emphasis on the word similar, because we intend to provide housing for a very similar tenancy, but the difference would be, of course, that modernization that I mentioned a few moments ago, which will provide an enhanced quality of living for those tenants in terms of both the private restrooms and cooking facilities. We looked at a bit of literature for support for this application. One of the pieces of literature we looked at was from our professional organization, the American Planning Association, its Housing Policy Guide for 2019. In that policy guide, it suggests a couple of, I'm going to use the word global, but national policy positions and incentives for this area that I think are instructive for applications. Position number 2, preserve existing housing to maintain the quality and overall supply of affordable housing. I'll pause there for a second. You'll hear from the applicant after myself, but the intent of this application by this applicant is to provide a housing typology on the continuum of housing that provides for affordable housing in the city of Paterson, very much akin to what existed when they purchased the property. Again, the only difference is that in this housing typology, there will be private restrooms and cooking facilities. Position number 5 in the APA Housing Policy Guide is support funding and program flexibility to provide services and permanent supportive housing for people experiencing a variety of issues, including immigration and homelessness. As this board knows, studio and efficiency apartments are intended to provide an appropriate and necessary housing option on the continuum of housing for those people in Paterson that need it. It also comports with, in my professional planning opinion, some of the master plan goals and objectives from the Paterson 2014 master plan. Housing goal number 3, and I quote, to provide opportunities for the construction and or rehabilitation of affordably priced market rate housing. The intent of the applicant in this matter is to provide a unique opportunity for affordable housing in Paterson for those that seek this type of housing accommodation. Land use goal number 2, to address the problems associated with vacant and abandoned properties. I will concede to the board that the applicant purchased the property and quickly did board the property up because of the unsafe conditions of the house and the the poor condition of the property. That being said, the opportunity to improve and modernize this building with the board's permission would advance that goal and objective of your master plan. In terms of pre-existing non-conforming uses, it is a term of art, but let me begin with some of the generalities. The building was used, as I mentioned earlier, according to the applicant's testimony will proceed, follow mine, for 12 occupants in this 3-story building. The applicant purchased the building with the intent to maintain that occupancy, but again, to modernize it in a substantial way. And by the way, that substantial modernization not only benefits the applicant, but in my professional opinion and humble opinion, benefits the neighborhood as a whole. And when you get to my exhibit, I think I'll be able to underscore that point. The dimensions of the building as a design professional testified remain relatively the same. There's no significant enlargement to the site, but in the context of a D2 variance, we would be properly before this board for either the change, intensification, or enlargement of a pre-existing non-conforming use. Again, any enlargement, change, or intensification to this building or site are intended to enhance not only the building, but again, improve the neighborhood character. According to the municipal land use law, pre-existing non-conforming uses are uses not permitted in a zone district prior to the enactment of the ordinance. As you know, the 5th Ward redevelopment plan was enacted relatively recently in 2015. You'll hear testimony from our applicant that the use of this property certainly predates the 5th Ward redevelopment plan. According to the municipal land use law sorry, Madam Court Reporter, the non-conforming use may be continued by an owner as long as there's no enlargement, change, or intensification. In the instance where there is an enlargement, change, or intensification, the applicant or owner is required to seek a D2 variance from the Zoning Board of Adjustment, not the Planning Board, not the governing body, but the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And while we would agree with your board planner that this may not be your cut and dry D2 variance. It certainly meets the four corners of a pre-existing non-conforming use, and I encourage the board to think in that context as I go through the litany of proofs, both for the D1 and the D2. Boarding house versus efficiency. A boarding house, by definition, is typically a dwelling unit or part thereof, which for compensation, lodging, and sometimes meals are provided. In New Jersey, boarding houses are licensed by the state and may be designed to serve a particular population and or serve meals. In our, based on my discussions with the applicant, no meals were provided for the occupants of the prior use of this site. In terms of efficiency, and you all know this, an efficiency or studio is a dwelling unit consisting of not more than one habitable room, together with a kitchen or kitchenette and sanitary facilities, also known as studio units. And they typically are relatively small. I would submit to the board that the size of efficiency units and studios is not much larger than the rooms found in a boarding house. Court cases in terms of support for this application, there are several. State v. Wagner permitted the increase in the number of tenants as part of a D2 variance. Institute v. Board of Adjustment provided the change from single family to a group home would be cognizable under a D2 variance. And finally, the landmark case, Burbridge v. Mine Hill, which I'm sure this board is familiar with, provides the guidelines for a board's deliberation of a D2 variance, and that is for the enlargement, change, or intensification of a pre-existing non-conforming use. I'm going to come back to the Burbridge case in a minute, but the highlights from this case are the relocation of unsightly parts of the business for which this case was based, and the improved landscaping and screening to improve the visual conformity of the property with the surrounding residential uses was deemed appropriate for the grant of the D2. Similarly, the court found that aesthetic improvements were sufficient to be deemed special reasons. Finally, under Burbridge v. Mine Hill, the court found under Judge Clifford's statement that a municipality may and should seek to harmonize the use with its environs. To this end, the municipality ought to require aesthetic improvements and a condition of which safeguards the general welfare. Whether this board determines that this is a D2 or, as your board planner, determine a D1 use variance, I would submit that the improvements that are made as part of this application would certainly be appropriate conditions for the approval under the D2 context. Any other conditions that this board would find appropriate certainly would further the proofs under the D2. Again, commissioners, I'll show you an exhibit in a moment. We have a property that has been in a state of disrepair for a while. That property had 12 occupants or units in it for a period that will be explained by our applicant. And what's being proposed is simply to renovate, it's a gut renovation of this structure to provide the same number of units, only in a different housing typology. That housing typology would be studio or efficiency units. In my professional opinion, if you were to approve this application, it would meet all of the guidelines for a D2 variance. I'll address the D1 in a moment, but before that, I would like to share an exhibit that shows the site and the surrounding area. Commissioners, this is one of my firm's typical exhibit formats. It's a compilation of images taken directly from the Paterson land use documents and images captured during I and my team's visits to the site. Nothing ground shaking in this exhibit. I know we need to mark it. It basically puts in context the location of the site in your redevelopment plan and provides further context for the remainder of my proofs. Is this A1 or A2?
A1. We have no other exhibits at this point.
Thank you. Commissioners, the first.
And for the record, Mr. Williams, for the record, it's dated today, April 28th, 2022, right?
Yeah.
For the record, it is dated today, yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Slide 2 is an aerial photograph capture of the site, highlighted in the blue. And you can see it's a mid-block site along Ellison Street, rectangular in shape, a bit wider than some of the adjoining lots, just give you a sense of how narrow those lots are. And it is 5,000 square feet. Slide number 3, just to show that we are definitely within the RA1 zone district, albeit at the boundary of the 5th Ward redevelopment area. Commissioner, slide number 4 is just a nod to the presence of public transportation in the area, of which there is a fair amount of mass transportation or public transportation. That happens to be the case almost everywhere in Paterson, but we did want to indicate some of the bus routes immediately in the immediate vicinity of this project site, primarily along, excuse me, 16th and Park Avenue, a block away from the subject site. Now for slide number 5, and this is where I think the images become incredibly important. You see our site, 456 Ellison, as it exists today, in incredibly poor shape. You'll note that there is no on-site parking at the moment, that the siding is basically stripped away, that the height matches the heights of the building at least to the left of our property, and that anything that is proposed for a site would be a significant improvement over that which exists today. Commissioners?
Mr. Williams, on that site, that is not house number 456. The one with the strip siding is not house number 456 because the survey shows it over 10 feet to the property line, and you only have a couple feet between buildings there, so that is not the same building.
So if you look at the property to the left, 454, and then you have 456, and I'll let the owner applicant clarify if I've made a mistake, but we.
I'm not sworn in yet, but Mr. Paparotti is correct.
Here's a copy of the survey, if you can see it on my screen.
This is our property.
That's right, and this was done, the survey was done August 31st, 2021, and you can see that I highlighted in red where there is parking, which you alluded to that there was no parking, but there was plenty of parking at that site. I mean, again, I don't know what it was used for, but there's a driveway, there's also a drop curb, which I highlighted on the bottom there. There's a 10.5-foot driveway and parking in the rear. There's 4 times as much at the existing site than what was proposed. I didn't want to correct you now, but when you brought up slide 5, it was not the correct house, so I had to interject. I apologize for that, though, Mr. Williams. But
No apologies.
Record.
I apologize to the board for the exhibit being a bit backwards. We have slide 5 and slide 6 reversed. And so it is I that owe an apology to both the board planner and the board. And Mr. Reed, although not sworn in, did clarify on the record that what you're looking at now, slide 6, is the subject property. So my apologies. You'll note that this building is actually taller than the prior building. Let me go back to slide 5 for a second and just intimate that this is some of the surrounding conditions on the street. And I apologize for the confusion. This is in the Fifth Ward redevelopment area. One of the purposes of the redevelopment plan is to redress conditions like this. I use the term blighting. The term has been amended to say in need of redevelopment, but any condition of vacancy, abandonment, or deteriorated status is what the redevelopment plan is intended to redress. And we get to our slide 6. This is the actual property in question. You can see the massing is a bit different. Excuse me, the fire escapes on the side. And this is the property that we have mentioned on more than one occasion was used for the boarding home.
This is subject.
Correct.
6 is subject.
Yes. So echoing Mr. Rubin's comment, slide 6 is the subject property. Slide 7, just another image of the surrounding area, capturing both the massing and scale of some of the other buildings in the area, in my opinion, which our design would comport with, but also capturing some of the less than positive attributes of the neighborhood, including either vacant yards or debris on the front yard. Commissioners, that is the end of this exhibit. What I would do is continue on to the proofs for the relief we're seeking for this application. Unless there are any other questions about the exhibit.
Gary, do you have any questions?
Not about the exhibit, that was cleared up, so.
Yeah. How about any commissioners have any questions? Okay, you can continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we would agree with the identification or characterization of this application as a D1, but again, it really does strike one more as a D2. So I'm going to go through both the D2 context and the D1 and other D variances. The importance of the D2 context, in my opinion, is it captures the current use. Again, the applicant will testify to the current use and fits neatly within the case law and municipal land use law in terms of the guidelines for a board deliberation about this use. If this were a agreed upon D2 use variance, then many of the other variances associated with this application would no longer exist. It would merely be the D2 for the change, enlargement, or intensification of the non-conforming use. Under the D2, the proofs would be a bit different. As I mentioned, under Burbridge court case, there would be a greater liberality in the board's review of the negative criteria, and there would be less stringent review for the positive criteria. In that context, the positive criteria would be the advancement of the purposes of zoning, subsection A, the general welfare. In my opinion, if you were to grant that relief, not only would you be permitting the introduction of quality housing for a particular cohort of the population, but you would be removing what's considered a blighted condition, which goes to the general welfare of the community. Subsection I would be the aesthetic or good civic design. Based on the rendering you've seen from our design team, if you were to approve our application, the proposed design would be a much improved design and layout for not only the building, but the site, opposed to what is there currently. In terms of the negative criteria, based on all that, I would submit to the board there would be no substantial detriment to the public good. In fact, I would argue just the opposite. Under the D2 context, there would be only improvements, not only to the site, but the surrounding neighborhood based on what you've seen from our design team. Of course, the quality of the units, interior units would be far improved to that which is provided currently. No substantial impairment to the zone plan. Again, the word substantial comes directly from municipal land use law, and I would submit to the board that there would only be an advancement of the goals and objectives of your master plan in the context of the D2 variance. If the board were to consider the D1 use variance, it would not be very dissimilar to what I've just described, but the criteria are just a bit more stringent. In terms of the purposes of zoning, they would be the same as previously stated under the D2. I would just add that the general welfare to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare would be advanced surely by the design presented to you a few moments ago that enhance the quality and safety of the units that are being proposed, and the welfare, general welfare, by removing what I would consider a blighted condition in the neighborhood. Subsection G, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote health, safety, and morals and general welfare as well. Again, you've heard some testimony from me already in my introductory comments that there is a need for this type of housing and that your approval would provide housing on the continuum that would advance this purpose. Subsection I, again, aesthetic and good visual environment, for all the reasons testified to by our architect. In my opinion, that purpose of zoning would be advanced. In terms of pre-existing, the particular suitability under the Himaji case, this is a pre-existing use in my opinion, but suffice it to say, the applicant will testify 12 units were there previously. We're proposing 12 units now, albeit configured differently as studios and efficiencies. The build-out will be very similar to the existing building, and in our opinion, would match the surrounding land development pattern. In terms of the negative criteria, I would submit to the board still, there would be no substantial detriment to the public good. In fact, there would be an improvement based on the design proposed by our team. No substantial impairment to the zone plan either, for the same reasons as I testified under the context of the D2. Commissioners, that leaves a couple of other D variances. Again, if this were a strict D2 context, it would not include a D4, D5, or D6. But if we were to prove the D4, which is the floor area ratio, the D5, which is the density, and the D6, which is the height, I would submit to the board that all of them are cognizable under the same standard, which is different than the D1 or the D2. For each of these three D variances, the board, the applicant has to demonstrate that the site can accommodate the increase to the maximum standard allowed, and that is for the floor area ratio, the density, and the height. In my opinion, based on the testimony provided by our design team, my review of the site and the application, the site can accommodate the increase in the maximum for both density, site, density, height, and FAR. I speak specifically to the ability of our proposed application to provide open space, albeit a bit less than what's required, parking on the site, and amenities that were mentioned by the design expert a few moments ago. That leaves us with the C variances, commissioners. Again, as I mentioned in my introductory comments, if this application the use were to be approved either as a D2 or D1, those bulk and area deviations could be subsumed under the D1 use variance. That is, if you accept the use, which is a 12-unit family residence or family building on the site, which included 12 dwelling units or occupants previously, then those bulk and area deviations could be part and parcel of your approval of the use. Be that as it may, we will go through the C variances. and there's a court case I'll begin with. It's the Pullen court case. And the Pullen court case, as you may know, suggests that if the board is satisfied with the overall development schema, then it can look at the bulk and deviation variances in their aggregate as opposed to as individual deviations. And in the aggregate, the board would find that overall the development schema is a better zoning alternative than strict application of your code, and that it works on this site. In my professional opinion, having reviewed the site plan and application, it's my opinion that the board could grant those bulk and area deviations as presented by our team today.
Mr. Williams, can the building be renovated as described without the bulk variances being approved? Do we absolutely need these bulk variances?
In my opinion, with the exceptions of the location of the trash and refuse, we do. It's part of the C2 or flexible C variance. It's a trade-off between the strict application of the code and the benefits that would accrue from these slight deviations from that code to make the overall site work. And in my opinion, the overall site works better if those deviations are granted. Again, no substantial detriment to the public good if those deviations are granted, and certainly no substantial impairment to the zone plan if you were to grant each and every one of the bulk and area deviations listed in our application. Finally, that leaves with the parking. We are seeking a deviation from the parking variance. You've heard experts before submit that the parking deviation is appropriate. I would echo that in this particular application, in large part because we are talking about studio apartments. Typically, the tenant for an efficiency unit or studio unit does not have a car or selects this location or type of location with proximity to public transportation because they don't have a car and are willing and able to use public transportation. In my opinion, based on that and what your master plan suggests in terms of the need to right-size parking requirements, particularly in redevelopment areas like the Fifth Ward redevelopment area, that the parking deviation is appropriate given the unit mix proposed for this site. Commissioners, with that, that's my conclusion for both the D, whether it's a D2 or D1, D4, and D5 and D6 application with C variances as well, all under C2 context.
Thank you, George. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention that I do have the Fifth Ward redevelopment plan prepared by the consultants to the city, and it is dated February 2017. And as you know, the redevelopment plan takes the place of any and all zoning ordinances, because that is the zoning ordinance for this particular neighborhood. And it is, as I said, dated February 2017. And that's the document I have right in my hand. Thank you.
Gary?
Yes, Chairman. I'm not sure what Mr. Rubin meant, but the Fifth Ward, as Mr. Williams alluded to, allows 1 and 2 families. So I don't know what the comment was meant to say, because I didn't understand it, but certainly there is a use variance here.
Well, it's quite easy to me. It's fundamental that what has been testified to as the boarding facility was a pre-existing non-conforming use without question, and that is the only nomenclature that one could have for this. But you have one more witness on that issue, and if he could be heard, Mr. Chairman.
As soon as I'm done, and the commissioners are done.
Thank you.
Okay, Chairman and commissioners and Mr. Williams, my reason for calling this a D1 is because the enlargement is such that the rear setback is going to change by more than 7 feet. The side setback in some areas is going to change by more than 7 feet. And in the front as well, your floor area ratio would probably be doubled, and your lot coverage and your square footage of the building is almost doubled. So it goes beyond a simple repair or an enlargement to more like what Commissioner Watkins said. The site that was posted and the site that you look at now are certainly not the same rentals, not the same building, and not even close. But that's my reasoning for the D1. Now, with that being said, the number of units is really not the same. Certainly, the residents may not be the same, but the number of units is not the same. A boarding house bases its residents on packs. Now, according to the tax roll, there were 8 bedrooms there. 2 were in the basement and 2 were in the attic, which were probably illegal anyway. Okay, so regardless, there were only 8 bedrooms there, so now you're going to 12. So that changes automatically. Aside from the fact 3 quick kitchens are going to 12 and 4 bathrooms are going to 12. Now, I also showed you the parking arrangement that was, I'm not sure if it was mentioned by Mr. Williams or the architect. There is parking, as I showed you, and I can show the site again if you need to see the survey. As far as the height with the D6 variance, the height of the existing building goes to the mean of the hip roof. And based on that, there's about a 10-foot difference in height because the flat roof goes to the upper facade of the flat roof. And it's almost, as a surveyor, when I looked at it, there's got to be close to 10 feet difference in height. So that is not the same as well. The bus route, which I also printed for the D5 in our neighborhood, it also shows bus route on Broadway, which is 2 blocks to the north, and the bus route on East 16th Avenue is 2 blocks to the south. I don't know if you could see the orange light and the green lines show there's 2 blocks each direction, not 1. So there is a little bit of a gap between mass transit. The detriment now, of course, the 2 buildings don't compare. Obviously, Mr. Williams is correct. The aesthetics of the proposed building are, they don't compare to what is there now. But the parking, although the requirement is 22 spaces is what required and 2 are being proposed, RSIS doesn't only have parking for the residents, but guests, visitors, caretakers, anybody who would be going to the site. That's all built into RSIS. So that's where your negative criteria comes in, because when I went to the site, I could not park. Now, if I can't park 1 and you're short 20, you know what that does? You follow the trail, which means while the building, I think, is very nice and it's aesthetically probably going to be the best looking one on the block, if approved, it means that the density is too high. That's why for this area, the density, and I have no problem accepting the use as a garden apartment, but the garden apartment density based on 50 by 100 is 4 units, not 12. This is where, and I agree with Mr. Williams on all those points, except for the fact that if it was downsized, everything would fit according to the way Mr. Williams presented it. Because vacant property in the master plan is asked to be, built, developed, but not to increase 3 times, 4 times, or even 6 times what is allowed in the zone. In the 5th Ward, RA1 zone, we're only allowed 2 family. If you go into 12, that's increasing it by 6. I have no problem with the use of a apartment building, but you're still increasing it by 3 times. So this is, and when you bring it down, you bring down all the variances. You bring down not only the parking, the open space requirement, the density, the floor area ratio, all of those get brought down. I think that the project is nice. You would think, and I'm sure everybody knows the buildings that Mr. Reed puts up. Those are nice buildings. So you're going to get people who go to these apartments. I believe they're going to have cars. You're also, in the buildings that he puts up, are usually up to date. To have no laundry in the building, I'm not saying there should be laundry in each room, but there should be a laundry section. You have 12 units. You don't have parking. So are people supposed to, and I don't know where the nearest laundromat is, but if they have no cars, are they walking 4 or 5 blocks with laundry? This is where that density, I have the issue with the density. And, well, listen, if there are any other questions, Mr. Chairman, I agree that the site is suitable for an apartment building. I agree with Mr. Williams that it is aesthetically, terrific looking. If it was downsized somewhat, maybe things would change a little bit better, in my opinion. That's where my detriment would come in, and that's where I think that the board needs to look. And I always defer that to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Any commissioners?
Commissioner Watkins, let's have a statement.
Yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
We talk about these old houses because they're old, they're decades old. Which means back then, we didn't have the congestion that we have now. We didn't need the parking spaces that we need now. And that's the difference. What you're trying to build, those 12 units in that spot, is too many. And if you bring it down, you still need to provide that amount of parking spaces. Because if anybody that's on this board or viewing this application is aware, 1, that's a one-way street. 2, it's a narrow one-way street. When, like Gary said, when they visit and when they move in, where do people want to park? When UPS gets on that street, nobody can go past. That means the traffic is backed up. Even if it's a big SUV, the traffic is backed up. So in that area, in that location, if you don't provide parking for the new buildings that's going up, it's going to be hard for not only the new tenants, but for the residents that live there as well. Again, outsiders must be respectful of the residents that live here in Paterson. They need parking. These houses are old. When they were built, things wasn't congested as it is now. So we need parking. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners?
Commissioner Minaro, Chairman Rahim.
Yes, Commissioner.
I'd just like to piggyback on that comment from Commissioner Watkins. I absolutely feel the same way. I feel that the parking is something, it is a big issue and we need to take that into consideration, especially on an already congested street. That's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any comments or any questions?
Commissioner White,
Yes, Commissioner Weiss.
I just have to make a comment. It's just unfortunate that the city of Paterson allowed this to be an illegal dwelling with multiple people living there in rooming houses. And I just don't, and I hope it's not a thing that we're going to be presented with that, well, 12 people live there, so let's just reconstruct this 3-family to a 12-unit development and just expand to see what we can get. I don't see how we're taking an illegal situation and trying to make it legal. I mean, if it was 3-family, this is a 3-family, cut back on some of these apartments. There's too many, rooms that are in there without no parking, no laundromats to either do laundry. The garbage is thankfully it's moving towards the back, because even that street right now, people, the other tenants and the other residents there have garbage on the street. It's not sanitary in that area. The parking, if you go there at night, which I've done that plenty of times, there's double parking. You can't even get through that block. And I just wish that, Mr. Anderson, that you would just reconsider some of these suggestions that the board is bringing towards you, as well as trying to reduce the number of units to make it more appealing, to the people that live in that area as well. Because we are here for this, the people in Paterson. We represent them. Even though they may be on the call, they may not be on the call. That's not here nor there. But the fact is that we can't continue to allow these types of structures, as nice as they are, and as well built that they are, to just impede on the parking situations and the conditions of living for the person coming home from work and needs to try to park their car, or trying to just get down their street. I think it's unfair at times, but I just hope you can just think about the conversations that have been had so far with the board members as well as myself. And I've seen some of the buildings that you put up before. They're lovely buildings, and they're really nice. But this one, I'm just taken aback by it. I really am. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioner before we move on? Commissioner Rubin, you can move on.
Yes, our next witness, Mr. Rick.
Excuse me, Mr. Rubin, are they open up to the public first? I don't wanna.
Yeah, that's just gonna jump out. I'm gonna open, Chairman.
Yes.
All right, to the members of the public, if you have any questions of this witness that just testified, please call 973-321-1579, enter meeting ID number 711-680-001. Let's just give it a moment to see if anybody calls.
Commissioners and Chairman Roheen, we have no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you, Maggie.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, Mr. Rubin, you can continue now.
Yes, Andy Reid, if you could be sworn.
You swear affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Say your full name for the record, please.
Andy Reid, REID, Director of Development, Paterson Falls Realty Group.
And Mr. Reid, you are familiar with this application, and you are the project manager and general manager for this site.
Yes, I'm familiar with this application, and more importantly, I'm very familiar with this site and historically familiar with it.
Well, let's talk about the history. What has been going on here, Mr. Reid? What's happening on this site?
Okay, so for the past few years, as long as I can remember, this site has been used as a room house. I know you hear the word illegal. I don't know where that came from, It may have been, without board approvals 40, 50 years ago, but the condition exists and is currently a rooming house. And prior to our company owning this property, and when I was a contractor, 15 years ago, I assisted the prior owner, I don't want to call his name, but I assisted the prior owner, but he had several violations at this rooming house where the city building department came in, did inspections, and required him to make some repairs. So that even with that, historically, for last 10 years that he owned it, there was always some violations there. The room house and the city inspectors and zone officers visited there several times and required him to make repairs there. And over the time, not this architect here, but other architect Matt Evans had assisted with doing plans for renovations over the course of the years. So now we purchased this property. My company purchased this property recently, and we purchased it as such a room house consisting of 12 rooms. That being said, once we acquired this property a couple months back, there was some issues there with utilities, and the fire department, actually Paterson Fire Department was busy on a big fire in Paterson, so the Clifton Fire Department responded, and they had ordered the utilities to be cut off by PCG until some repairs were made. That next day, we came out, electrician made those repairs. The building subcode official responded to the site, as well as the fire chief, and they deemed it safe from those violations that caused the electricity to be disconnected, and they gave the okay for PCG to restore the power to the building. That was my first time visiting the site since we had acquired it.
So
And
on this point, in your prior testimony, Reed, are saying that the city of Paterson, through all of its numerous agencies and divisions and such, knew that this was a boarding facility for a number of years.
Yes, has visitor sites. If they want. I mean, we like over, but the city can get it. Historically, violations that were on this room house, as well as for the record from the issue that we had when we acquired it and had to do the repairs to get the utilities restored to this 12-unit room house.
Now, when your company and the company you're affiliated with purchased this, were there 12 inhabitants? Were there 12 separate rooms inhabited by individuals?
Yes, it was. It was 12 individual rooms totally rented out. When I went up on the site and inside of it and inspected, to me the conditions were horrible. And then obviously the tenants were sharing kitchen and sanitary facilities, and I thought it was disgusting. And I said, here it is, in 2021, you still had these things existing. And so I brought it to the attention of the head of our company, asked him to meet me at the site, and I discussed with him, asked him, do you think we have this site here, instead of people sharing bathrooms and kitchens, make so everybody can have their own individual bathroom and kitchen, same 12 tenants. And that's when they took up my advice and everything, and my passion I always had for Paterson, especially for Fifth Ward, First Ward. I have a unique passion for those wards. And he agreed with my assessment, and we gave the existing tenants financial assistance to find some more solutions. I didn't want them to live in that condition. I didn't want anybody living in that condition that they were living in. And so we engaged architecture services of our architect that we were using to come up with a design to take these 12 rooms and to make them just 12 efficiency units, studio apartments, where every tenant has their own kitchen and their own bathroom facilities. Obviously, in doing so, it's gonna require us to increase the footprint and increase the layout of the building. That being said, if you look at the rendering that our architect showed you, and Mr. Paterson agreed, aesthetically it looks very pleasing and would be a nice looking building in the area, which it would be. But that being, and not only that, if this board see fit to approve this application, this building will now become a fully sprinkled and fire alarmed building, 24-hour monitoring by an alarm company with accessibility to the fire department. The walls and the adjoining units will be 1 hour fire rated, as well as that will also protect the neighboring properties for a 2 hour fire rate in case a fire did occur, and protect the new house that's to the right of this application's property, as well as to the house on the other side of the driveway. So it makes it a more secure, more cleaner, better looking, better built, all upgrades, electrical, plumbing. Will be required, if approved, to install a new sewer lateral to the main municipal sewer line. Will be required.
Garbage pickup.
Well, we take that anyway ourselves. We maintain our properties. The garbage will, be on a regular schedule. We handle our own garbage. But even before we get there, also, the city will require us to bring the sidewalks and curbs to the standards of the ordinance of Paterson. We will also be required to pay a substantial fee to the city of Paterson to go towards the fund to rebuild the sewer infrastructure in the city of Paterson, as we are required for any project that we get approved by either this board or the planning board. So, in all honesty, what we have here is 12 rentals. If this board approves it, we're gonna have 12 rentals and whatever the 2 park stations that we have. If they deny it, we'll still have 12 rentals with those 2 parking spaces that we have. So either way it goes, we're gonna have 12 rentals. Either we're gonna have 12 rentals, that's a better condition, more safer for the tenants, more safer for the neighborhood, and bring a substantial improvements to the neighborhood. If this application gets denied, okay, boss, I tried, you guys know my idea, we got denied. Scope permits, took 12 rooms, it's gonna look the same outside, we still gonna have 12 tenants. That's not gonna change. So it's just a choice of, do we have 12 better units or 12 of the units that we have? That's inferior product to what we're proposing to do.
Can you make a comment regarding parking? We know you have familiarity with the parking dynamics in that whole neighborhood.
Yes, I do, and I'm not gonna say to the commission some that Paterson don't have parking issues, especially in certain areas. I'm not here to say that UPS trucks will never double park on this street or a lot of other streets. But they ain't heard it after the package. I'm not gonna hear say that. But what I'm really saying is, what we have, we have. Either we're gonna have something better, more safer, more secure, more pleasing to the neighborhood, enhance the neighborhood, enhance the value of the neighborhood, or we keep what we have. We're gonna have the same parking conditions. We're gonna have the same tenancy amount. Regardless if anyone's tenants have someone staying with them, they'll have that. Whether they stay there simply by themselves, have someone stay there with them. We don't know who's gonna stay there by themselves, who's gonna have somebody with them. So whatever the conditions, the parking and all that stuff there, either way, whether this application get approved or denied, it's gonna be the same thing. That's not gonna change. So it's just a matter of the board deciding, do we want this, or we want this, just keep that what they have here. That's all it's gonna boil down to. That's the simplest way for me to put it.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Yeah, again, like I said, I personally bought the ownership of the company to the site and asked them to do this for me. This is crap here. So I tried.
Thank you, Randy. Chairman, those are the witnesses for this application.
Okay. Gary, do you have anything for the applicant?
Yes, Chairman, yes. Well, first, Mr. Reed, the parking does not stay the same. As I just showed everyone on the survey, the parking that exists there now can hold probably 3 or 4 times more than what you are proposing. So the parking does not remain the same. As far as the number of tenants, the tax bill says that there are 8 bedrooms. And now, I'm not saying that there weren't 12 people there. I don't know what was there. But they could have converted the living rooms and dining rooms into bedrooms for these people. Whether it was done legally or not, I do not know. So, and the 8 bedrooms that were there, 2 in the basement and 2 in the attic. And that's according to your tax sheet. So, those conditions are certainly not the same. Now, everyone knows the buildings that you put up with security, sprinklers, and such. There's no laundry facilities here, and there's no parking. So these people have to walk, and I don't even know how far they have to walk. But we're talking about 2022. That's certainly not fair. That's certainly not.
Mr. Paterson, I don't mean to cut you off, but as far as the laundry, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And we could put a couple washers and dryers in the basement. I meant to say that in my comment, so I'm glad you did bring it up again. That reminded me, you're 100% correct. And we could accommodate a couple washers and a couple dryers in the basement for that purpose.
I don't know that, but again, if that's the case, I would suggest that the board, I see some other plans because there was question about the height, which is not the same. There's question about the area, which is not the same. Question about the floor area ratio, which is not the same. And I would request then, if that's the case, that we do that. But quite frankly, the parking and the bedrooms are not the same. And I think that's where your deficit comes in with that parking. I believe that if you can't fit 1 car and you're 20 short, that to me is an issue. So
yeah, but Gary, I did not say that we had 12 people living there. I said we had 12 rentals. 12 individual room rentals. It could have been 12 plus whoever guests or whoever they had staying with, whoever they had staying with them. I'm saying we had 12 rentals.
And I'm saying I'm not sure how legal everything was, but I'm just telling you.
Can I stop for a second, Gary? We're talking a lot about how illegal everything is, how it wasn't. We have no documents being presented from the city as to the legality of it. We have no documents that it is a boarding house. Let's just talk about the application that's in front of us now. And in terms of what will be there if this isn't granted, well, I don't know that to be true, because if it turns out it's illegal and now this thing is on the radar and it is illegal, it may not be there. So let's just talk about what is going in and what is being proposed. Let's move this along and not even talk about that, because as far as I'm concerned, there hasn't been anything presented to show that it is a legal boarding house. You indicated that you have the documentation that it's a 3-family. We're just gonna move on. Let's talk about what is being proposed, if it's appropriate, and what will be there if this is granted will be what's proposed, and what will be there if it's not granted, we'll figure that out. Because if it's illegal, it may not be there, or it'll continue being illegal.
Mr. Larka, if I could be heard, I most respectfully disagree.
Yeah, go ahead. Why?
Because what the testimony has been.
The testimony's from your applicant.
Uncontroverted.
Wait. There hasn't been any testimony.
Testified. Mr. Reed testified.
One at a time.
Gentlemen, one at a time. Knows it's legal.
Please, I'm speaking.
You've been speaking for 2 hours on this issue. You haven't presented any evidence. It's what you've seen there. We're gonna move on. Unless you have something to show it's legal. He testified he saw 12 people living there. Okay. That doesn't mean it's legal. You can go to a vacant building, there could be 20 people living there. It doesn't mean it's legal. Let's move on.
But it doesn't say most
We're not
respect,
accepting it as a boarding house if you don't provide proof that it's a boarding house. The
and
plan
you don't
provided
have,
proof
and
that
there
it's
is
a
nothing on the
three-family.
record.
You can make whatever, you made a record for 2 hours, we're moving on. Unless you have some
There's
sort of
nothing on the
documentation that
record
it's a
that says
legal
stop.
boarding house, we're not gonna continue on for another 2 hours about it being a boarding house and that we're gonna be stuck with a boarding house. You haven't provided any proof, let's move on.
There is no proof that it isn't either.
Yes, there is. There's a tax bill that says it's a three-family, Mr. Rubin. That's the proof that I'm going on. But listen,
You don't have the proof.
with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'm finished.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay.
Thank you, Marco. Any commissioners? Commissioners, do you have any question for the applicant?
Commissioner Watkins, how you
Yes.
doing, Mr. Anderson? Your
How you
project
doing?
is a nice project, but need to bring the apartments down and issue the same parking spaces that's needed. Otherwise, it's not a good fit. And if you don't accept if it's denied or approved, then if you wanted it and don't want it now, going forward, somebody else might want it. But we just can't settle just because of the statement you made. We still have to look out for the residents that live there.
Okay, I understand. I hear what you say. The only thing I'm saying is, approve or deny, it's still gonna be 12 units there. That's all I'm saying.
And hopefully somebody, again, it's a nice building, and hopefully somebody will come along. And if you don't want it, somebody else will.
Well, we own it. We have the property. I mean, I just want to make it. I just want the company to make it better for the neighborhood and better for whoever gonna occupy it. I mean, I can't go and tell them, hey, listen, go sell that building. I can't go tell the company, hey, go sell the building. It's not my personal property either. I understand exactly what you're saying, though.
Commissioner White?
Yes, Commissioner White.
Hi, Mr. Anderson.
Good evening. How you doing?
Okay. I love talking to you because I like your honesty and I like your compassion.
Thank you.
The financial assistance that you provided to the tenants that were placed, was the intention for them to come back to these apartments, or were you looking for new tenants?
Well, they do have a number, and we have their name listed there, and we did tell them that once we get this thing here fixed up, they'll be welcome to come back.
Now, my follow-up question to that is that now we know I don't know, but the cost of a room by itself will be a lot less than paying for a efficiency. So is there some kind of incentive that you're going to help them with because that's why they probably have a rooming house, because they couldn't afford to get an apartment. So how is that going to work?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the ownership because I'm not going to do the actual management per se myself. I deal with the development aspect of it, and so I just don't want to just commit an answer to you that may or may not be factually true.
I got that. That's appreciative. Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Yes, hi, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Good evening.
Commissioner. Go
Good
ahead.
evening, everybody. I do have a question for the applicant, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My question is, how do you think that this new building will improve not just that area, but the whole entire city of Paterson?
I mean, it will be, as far as for the whole city of Paterson, it'll just be one leg of a part of redevelopment that's been going on and development that's been going on through the city of Paterson. This is a small part, but it's a part to contribute to the redevelopment of the city of Paterson. And it brings a property into what I guess you call modern living.
Yes, my next question is, are you planning to have like a security system?
Yes. Mr. Poperosi addressed that for me himself because as he said, on our properties, we have 24-hour security monitor that's monitored by the Paterson Police Department, as well as our own house security. We have a nice big security room operation where we monitor all of our properties 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we also have roving patrols that go around all of our properties. And every single day, we must have one of the largest maintenance crews. If you didn't know, you'd probably think they're part of DPW because every morning in front of all of our properties, they get cleaned up every day, all day. I mean, we must have about 30 Florio employs about 35 to 40 municipal residents that clean our properties every day of the week, including Saturday.
Does the neighborhood knows about this new construction? I mean, about the plan of this new construction?
This project here?
Yes, this project.
Sure, we are required by law to notify everybody within 200 feet of this property, 200 feet radius of what are we doing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Furman.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner before we move on? Marco, can you open it up to the public, please?
Yes, to the members of the public, if you have any questions of the applicant or any statements or comments, this would be the time. Please call 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID number 711-680-001. Let's give it 1 moment. Any callers?
We have no callers at this time. You may proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rubin, your next witness, or you can sum up?
No, that's all the witnesses we would have. Just to sum up, we believe that we have given the board a much better zoning alternative than what is there today. What is there today is not acceptable. It's wrong. Your planner has suggested that it might even be illegal on zoning because the tax records say one thing and it's been used for something else. Well, this application, if it is approved, takes away all of that illegal thinking and it becomes legal in what we can do pursuant to the board's and approval of what we are asking for. I understand that some of the members have grave problems, especially with parking. And there is no question that parking is difficult in probably all of the 4th Ward, in the 5th Ward where this is, in the 1st Ward, all over, and except maybe in the downtown area where there's municipal parking garages. But for whatever reasons, we don't have municipal parking garages in these residential areas. Mr. Perez and the parking authority has never seen fit to give us those in these residential areas. So we have what we have. We have congestion, there's no question. But we are giving, and we believe we are, and this developer is doing something that no developer has done in years and years. And that is putting money and services into these neighborhoods. And this he should be, and this company should be commended for what they're doing. yes, this has been a boarding facility, legal or not legal. This wipes it out and it becomes a legal type of place where people could live in a nice, orderly, clean fashion with security. And as you have heard, uh, if there's anything amiss, the police department knows about it because it's all on camera. There's garbage pickup. You know that some of the properties in this area have garbage in front of it, right? You saw the photographs that were in this neighborhood. There is unsightly garbage in here. That doesn't happen because all of the properties owned by this developer, garbage and debris are picked up by private refuge carriers. So there is no question that the municipality does not have to spend money or resources, which it needs, and we know budgets in the city are tight. But here, the city does not have to spend money on those resources. There's another thing that the city doesn't have to spend money on, and that's school-age children, because we know it costs a lot of money to put children into the public school system. And here, these are not the kind of facilities that children live in. These are adult facilities, usually a one person, maybe at best two, but mostly ones. And there are no children. There are no amenities for children. This is not a place for children to live. So that means that for the reasons that were given, there are no school children in this area, and that is an expense that the municipality doesn't have to worry about. Um, and as I said before, the garbage pickup and having the police protection with the cameras and such, this is a plus. And I know the board feels it's congested and there's no parking and whatnot. And yes, parking is tough, and we know that, but there has to be a balancing. And in a law, we call it a balancing of equities, and you have to weigh what's better. And most respectfully, what wins out on balancing is to get rid of this unsightly building and building a new, nice, safe building in the heart of the Fifth Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Commissioners, I have no doubt that obviously the project would be a better project. My concerns are that the density is too great. The reason for that, or proof of the pudding, is there are 14 variances and 4 D-variances. That tells you that it is just too big for the site. But the main issue is the 20 spaces short, which I always defer to the commissioners. So, you heard all the testimony, and if I can answer any questions, I certainly will. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Commissioners, can I have a motion for this application? Commissioners?
Mr. LaRocca?
If Commissioner Watkins. Oh, I'm sorry, Maggie.
That's okay, I wasn't sure. It's okay, go proceed.
Commissioner Watkins.
Yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
If no changes will be made to the units, I move to deny.
I second the motion. Commissioner White?
Okay, Maggie, we have a motion on the floor.
Yes, sir. Commissioners? Commissioner Barat, your vote, sir.
I move to approve the project, because I consider, I'd like to make a statement.
Well, hold on, Commissioner Brown.
Yes,
There's a pending motion to deny. So you would first have to, you would have to vote no on denial if your
Okay.
vote is approved.
all right, I vote no on denial.
Thank
You
you
can
very
make, you
much.
can make a statement.
I like to make a statement.
Yes, sir.
I do believe, I know there's a parking space, a parking problem everywhere in Paterson. And, but these are studios. This is going to be a much better modernized apartments, a way of living for whoever moves in there. And there's going to increase security for the, I guess, not only for the tenants, but the tenants around, because of all the vigilance and everything that's going to be brought into the building. That for that reason, I want to give it a shot. I motion to approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Barat. Commissioner Furman, yes or no on denial?
Commissioner, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Before my vote, can I please make a comment?
Yes, sure.
I'm thinking about what it is today and what it's gonna be tomorrow. I mean, we understand that parking is a big issue, but I think this is a little bit better. Sometimes, chances are that you're gonna have a couple living in the same place, and most of the time, people don't need two cars. So I'm going with the positive, and my vote is not to deny.
Thank you. Commissioner Minaudo? Commissioner Minaudo?
Maggie, would you mind calling
Yes.
coming back? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Watkins? Yes or no on denial?
I'm gonna stick with no because I don't want the
Yes.
traffic to go further down the street. Thank you.
So your vote will be yes on denial, am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner White?
Yes or denial?
Commissioner Arenas?
I tend to agree. I understand both sides, and I heard what was being said, but I want to deny because I think there's a possibility that this can be worked out. So I say no.
No.
Hold on, so.
No, I mean I do not agree with the denial. That's what I mean.
Okay, so you're voting no towards the motion, okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. Commissioner Minaudo?
I'm caught at a crossroad as well because I think it has the potential of being a good project. The parking spaces is definitely something that I really it really bothers me at this point. So I'm going to say yes to the denial.
Thank you very much. And Chairman Rohim,
Yes, I know parking is an issue in the city. That's everywhere we go. And not only Paterson, it's throughout New Jersey. But the project that was presented tonight is better than what it is now. And I think will increase the quality of life. Not by parking, but at least for living of anybody that lives in the building. So my vote will be no for the denial.
You have a 4 no on denial and 3 yes on denial.
Mr.
Mr. Rocco.
Chairman, I do believe it would be appropriate, according to case law, that a second motion.
Yeah, hold on a minute, council.
Yeah.
The first motion has failed. And now that is correct, council. A second motion could be made by one of the commissioners to approve it.
Correct.
Okay, Commissioner.
Having said that, you still need 5 yes.
Yeah, we agree.
Yeah.
We do agree on that.
That's good.
Commissioners, can I have another motion?
Commissioner Baralt, I make a motion to approve the project because I think what's there now is nothing compared to what it's going to be.
Okay, can I get a second?
I second the motion.
Okay.
Too late for me. Sorry, I was on mute again.
Okay. That's fine, we'll add you as a third.
Who was the third?
Commissioner Furman, right? You were trying to second it?
Yeah, but I would like to make a comment again, if it's possible.
Let me call you when I get to you.
When you vote.
When you vote, when I get to you, okay?
You understood?
Thank you. Commissioners, let's begin. Commissioner Marat,
Yes, up to approve.
Commissioner Furman,
It's a beautiful project. I mean, I love to see improvement. We understand that we're a little bit short with parking. Parking is a big issue in our city, but like I say, chances are that probably a couple is gonna live there, and most of the time, we don't need 2 cars. So my vote is yes for approval.
thank you. Commissioner Minauro,
My vote is no.
thank you. Commissioner Watkins,
No.
Commissioner White,
No, I would just like for them to reconsider reducing the number of apartments, but my vote is still no.
thank you very much. Commissioner Arenas
Yes.
and Chairman Rohim,
Yes.
4 yes, 3 no.
So it's a statutory denial because it didn't receive the 5 required votes.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
commissioners.
everyone, for all the time you've given us. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the time that the planner and council have given us too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Can I?
Good night. Meeting is adjourned.
Not yet.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary and Marco, do we have any other business?
I have no further business, Chairman.
Marco, you're good?
We're good.
Gary?
We're good.
Okay. All right, commissioners, so we'll close the meeting for tonight. Have a good evening, good night.
Enjoy your weekend, everyone.
Yes.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Everyone.
Tough night tonight, but that's okay. Okay, bye.
Motion to close.
Yep, motion to close.
Thank you.
Okay.